one of each.
I'll call the Londonderry Planning Board meeting to order for December 14th, 2011. Just want to make everyone aware, if we have an emergency, you need to evacuate. This room has 2 exits. They're on the right-hand side of the audience, the front and the back of the room. If we do need to evacuate, we ask you to go through the exit closest to you, go outside, move away from the building, don't come back in until our fire officials have instructed everyone to do so. I'd like to ask everyone to please rise and pledge allegiance to the American flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have a quorum of the board. Chris Davies is away on business, and I'll appoint Letha to vote for Chris. And John LaFerrier has a special school board meeting tonight. He's going to be late. Our meeting is divided into 2 parts. The first part, we have our administrative board work. The second part, this being the second Wednesday of the month, we have continued plans, new plans, and then any continued business. So we'll proceed to administrative board work. John, I think you've got, we have 2 plans to sign. One is the Galacco subdivision, 32 Parmenter Road, tax map 3, lot 138-1.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this plan was conditionally approved back on July 6, 2011. It was a request from James and Cynthia Galakis, map 3, lot 138-1 for a 2-lot subdivision plan. Had been conditionally approved by the board, and staff can report conditions of approval have been met and recommend signature of the plan.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion we authorize the chairman and secretary to sign the plans for Galacco subdivision, 32 Parmenter Road, map 3, lot 138-1.
I have a motion, and a second by Rick. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair was affirmative. And the Galacco subdivision plan will be signed at the conclusion of the meeting tonight.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the second plan is was conditionally approved back on February 3rd, 2010. Was a request of Richard and Deborah Higgins for a lot line adjustment on Pillsbury Road, map 9, lots 85 and 85-1. It was again conditionally approved on February 3rd, 2010. Staff can report conditions of approval have been met and recommend signature of the plan.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, motion by Dana, second by Rick. Any discussion by the board? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair was affirmative. And the Higgins lot line adjustment, Pillsbury Road, will be signed at the conclusion of the meeting tonight. We have an extension request from Quantum Aviation Services. And they are requesting an extension of the site plan approval. This is located at 12 Industrial Drive, tax map 28, lot 21-7.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your packet, there's a letter dated December 2nd from Keach Nordstrom Associates. And for the record, I'll read the letter into the record. It says, Dear board members, as you may recall, the referenced site plan received planning board endorsement on December 3rd, 2008. In addition, approximately 1 year ago, the site plan was granted a second extension as a result of poor economic conditions and lack of viable financing options. The purpose of this letter is to again request an extension of the original site plan approval for an additional 1 year period. Section 7.06C of the Town of Londonderry Site Plan Regs states that site plan approvals are valid for a period of 1 year and may be extended for a period of 1 additional year if due to extenuating circumstances. Although the board has already granted extensions of the original approval, we request that the board consider granting a 3rd extension on the site plan approval. The ongoing economic troubles have resulted in the delay of the project. The applicant remains optimistic that the project can be completed in the future and would still like to preserve the land use approvals currently in place. We appreciate the board's consideration of this extension request. Sincerely, Jeffrey Merritt, PE, Project Manager of Keach Nordstrom Associates. Staff supports granting of the additional year extension, and staff can also report there has been no zoning changes that would impact this particular approved site plan.
Okay, so this will go through December 14th of 2012.
Correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we grant the applicant's request for an extension for 1 year.
Second.
Motion by Dana, second by Rick. Any discussion by the board?
The only thing is, they're gonna have to change the road names, John,
Oh, yeah,
on all the plans, right?
yeah.
Okay. You knew that.
Thank you.
He knows it now, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative, and the extension has been granted to December 14th of 2012. Okay, next we have discussions with town staff. Okay, I'll just check with, anything, John?
Nothing.
Cynthia?
No,
You're
Mr. Chairman.
all set? Okay, Andre?
All right, either in your packet or on your monitor, we discussed at last week's meeting the RFP for the third-party review for the Woodmont Commons Plan Unit Development. And at last week's meeting, I believe the board concluded that it wanted to review it between last week's meeting and this week's, as well as taking any input that we may have received from either the applicant or other interested parties. And we received a few of those, one from the applicant and I think a few comments from the board. And what I'll do, if Mr. Chairman, if that's all right with you, is to go through each section and alert the board of what has changed from last week, or what some of the proposed amendments to the RFP were, and what we're prepared to move forward with, and then we can take any comments from the board as to if you see a need to change that, change the RFP accordingly.
Okay, yep.
Can I just ask a question before we get begin? There's two in the packet, so is one the original and then the other one is the changed?
Yes, the packet that looks like this is the one that we modified based on staff's recommendation to the planning board at last week's meeting. And the one with the red on the front is one that we received from the attorney representing Woodmont Commons. And what I'll do is, and if there's any amendments that the board had submitted, then I'll alert you to those as we go through those. So starting with the front cover, one of the recommendations from the applicant was to change the request for proposal from planning and engineering review services to planning consultation services for Woodmont Commons Plan Unit Development Proposal. And staff is recommending that we stay with the planning and engineering review services, but that is a change that has been proposed.
How does the board feel?
I got to ask a question before we go too much further. So the copy that we got in the mail that's red
Yes,
is the copy that was marked up by the applicant's attorney?
correct.
Under.
Okay, so the black, the black
Got
was
that
your
picture,
original?
right?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I have to ask a question. If we don't believe that consultation is acceptable, that we want to leave the engineering and the other, what was it, and the review the engineering, planning and engineering review services in, and all the components that would go along with that. Is it even, as a board, I think we should have that discussion, and if we decide that that's not the way we want to go, then I don't think we need to go through the rest of the proposal, because the proposal simply takes out all that engineering.
Yeah, and it had some other changes that I think, some of the changes that were suggested by the applicant's attorney are reasonable, and we want to make sure that the board is aware of that, and some we just feel is inconsistent with, I think, direction that the board gave me with regard to what it wants in the RFP.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to clarify what's
Yes.
actually on the, in the documents that you're looking at tonight, and I need to look to Andre. The one that's up there now is what was presented by the applicant.
Correct.
The next one are the changes, all the changes. It's
correct.
the final proposed document.
Correct.
And so,
The one dated 12/14, correct?
the one dated 12/14. We have 12/7 available if you need to see it for any reason, but I think, my understanding is that we moved well beyond that, taking into consideration all the comments that were received from the planning board, plus the applicant, plus a member of the general public, so.
Yeah.
So that's what's here to
Town.
view is
The proposal.
the applicant and then the sort of compilation.
Okay.
Okay. So you want to-
Board clear on that?
No, I'm not.
Not really.
So the 1214 is the latest version that we're
Yes.
looking at here.
Yes.
So this is the first time we're seeing it.
Yes.
Okay, and the 1214 is the one that you recommend?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. So, and that takes into the pieces from the applicant that you believe should be included in the,
Some of their
Proposal.
suggestions, as well as the suggestions received from board members.
okay.
Where are you seeing a date on this?
On the
It's on the
file.
file
On
name.
the file. So the one that doesn't have any red on it is the one that we're referring to as 1214.
Right on the cover.
Correct.
The one that they have in the
So
office.
if there's no color on the cover, that's the one that, the most
Mostly
recent,
the-
1214.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the only reason I
Yeah,
question-
could you identify yourself for, or come to the microphone so people can hear you?
Sure.
That would be good.
Yes. And one of
I'm Ari Pollock with Gallagher, Callahan, and Gartrell. I'm attorney here for the applicants tonight. The only reason I'm interrupting and asking for clarification is because I have the same concern as the board. I'm not certain which version is which. I received by email last Wednesday or Thursday what I think was the draft that staff had provided to the board at last week's meeting. I then provided a redlined version of the initial submission by email to staff, and I think you've received that in some form. I now understand that there is a third version that tries to either accept or reject some of the suggestions that I had made and perhaps others had made, and I haven't received any of those further drafts.
Neither have we. This
Neither
is
have
it.
we. This is the first we're seeing of it.
Okay.
And I think it was probably, Andre had worked on it today, and I know,
Yeah, and we kept on receiving comments up to the last minute, and I believe the board left the last week's meeting with the conclusion that whatever we receive, we'll bring back to the board, and that's what we're doing.
Yep.
So is there a hard copy available tonight that shows,
Yes,
What-
there's one, and I believe Mr.
and
Chairman
that's
has
where
one.
what I picked up from your desk there does not appear to me to have a file name path on it. And that's why I'm not certain if I'm looking at the appropriate document or not.
That is.
It's
that
not
is
in the
latest
Word
and greatest.
document, it's in the PDF name. It's not on the document itself,
I see.
the date.
Is yours red on the front?
No.
If
Well, I
it's not
have-
red on the front, then it's the latest, it's the
It's the latest
1214
draft.
copy. I think that the red line version, which was the penultimate copy, has red on the front.
And if I can go through each page, then I think we can clarify which is which, and,
Right, because
but
there
that
is-
is the latest draft, is
Right.
the one
There is
that,
color within the document itself,
it's multicolored.
indicating the changes.
Okay. There's red, there's yellow, there's blue.
I think they have black and white copies.
no, there should be color.
Yeah,
You made the copy.
Identify yourself for a record.
For the record, Mr. Chairman, my name is Michael Kettenbach. I'm the proponent with Woodmont Development. I'm concerned tonight that we're looking at another draft of a RFP when we have before the board an application for acceptance of a planned unit development, which statutorily should have been acted on over 30 days ago. And we received the proposal from the community for the RFP almost 2 months after we had filed a formal application for the acceptance of our PUD. We have another draft tonight. I'm wondering what takes 60 days to iron out an RFP prior to something that really statutorily should have already been approved and then discussed as to how the RFP would have been handled and proceeded in an orderly manner. I'm confused by the manner at which we've been put off for another 60 days with no end in sight for a process to start, to which we would be gracious and understanding and clearly know that this is something that would take in excess of 65 days to approve. We've already spent 2 years showing our patience, but we really wanted to start a process tonight to have a clear understanding from the community that we're properly before them. It's like putting what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Statutorily, we believe that we're properly before you and came here tonight to talk about what is statutorily before you. I'm at a loss as to where we're at tonight. I would like some direction maybe from the board as to how we're going to proceed this evening so that we can then sit back down, go watch you deliberate, ask questions of us as to what our thoughts might have been on the RFP and the process, and then maybe we can get to whether the board is going to even entertain our statutory application this evening. And I'm not trying to do this in a manner that's adversarially. I'm just trying to understand the procedure. Am I right, or? Okay.
I was just, I had a question, I guess, for you. Last week when we were here, Attorney Michaels, who I think represents you, indicated that, you know, this was, you know, he'd seen the RFP first time, but there had been no contact from you to Andre regarding the RFP, so.
That's incorrect.
Well, that's what he said. Okay,
well-
so I'm just going by what he said. Okay, so, but that's part one. Part two, forgetting that, we had Andre's and the staff's RFP, you know, proposal, and I saw your counter proposal to that, you know, striking out the word engineering, and frankly, from, you know, just my point of view, I don't know about anybody here. I'm not an engineer. I don't think anybody else here is an engineer. I think the purpose of having engineering review is, you know, kind of basic. And if we're at that kind of differences here, I'm not sure that, you know, the timing really is an issue because, you know, we're at two different points here. And I, as one board member, am not comfortable going forward with something as highly technical as this without an engineering review. I mean, frankly,
A second engineering.
well, a second engineering review, I wouldn't be happy without an engineering review of a 5-acre subdivision. You're proposing 600. So with all due respect, I think, you know, if you're here and staff's here, I'm really not concerned about that we didn't get to this 30 days ago, because all that would have been was 30 days ago we would have been here and here.
Those are good points, and I'd like an opportunity to respond to them, Mr. Chairman.
And by the way, I mention that just because of the repeated references to statutory by the applicant.
No, I heard what he said.
Yeah.
My response to that, and I'll try to take them in order, our frustration has been that after 2 months of having filed this application, the RFP draft comes out of staff the night of a meeting where the project is not on the agenda, and that Attorney Michaels happens to be here. He picks up a copy, I receive it by email, and out of the blue, it's dropped on us. And it's not, there have been requests for progress throughout. I could show you a number of emails that ultimately led to my correspondence and communications with Attorney Mayer, who represents the town, asking for progress updates. I started early in this process explaining that we'd had any number of project consultants working on this application. We wanted to make sure that those individuals would, number one, be present when the board discussed the application, so that if there were questions about a part of it that they worked on, they'd be able to answer them. But also that we would have an efficient review of the project, including what Mr. Kettenbach is referring to, which is the statutory requirement for action on the completeness of the application within 30 days of it being filed. And the board will remember back to the November discussion we had about creating an RFP for an independent review, where I made the comment that we were interested in the board having a quality review process. Everybody on this board was going to need to recognize that this was somewhat of a different animal than a subdivision or a site plan application, and generate a comfort level that we were proposing something that fit with the regulations, and that frankly we had supplied what the ordinance was requiring. That relates to the merits of the application. It doesn't relate to whether or not we have filed something that lines up appropriately with the checklist in the ordinance. One of the reasons that we've struck the reference to engineering review is because this isn't a subdivision application. Whether it be 5 acres or 625 acres, it's not that application. It's also not a site plan application, which I understand would be a typical application received by this board, which would require some review, and I understand it's been the town's practice to have a review prior to acceptance so that the board is informed by its review consultant as to whether or not the checklists, which in those instances require hundreds of items be included, are present or not. In this case, there are 25 items that are mentioned in the PUD ordinance. It's our position that we have satisfied the request to submit information on all 25 items, or in the instance where the items are just simply catch-all, give information that the board requests. There haven't been requests made to date, and we would supply information when those requests were made. So our position on statutory acceptance is that it's an administrative act of measuring what we have supplied versus what is required. In terms of the engineer versus the planner, who's necessary, it's our view this is not a subdivision or site plan application. This is an application for a master plan under the PUD ordinance that requires a planning review to make sure that the zoning structure that we're proposing will accommodate the future subdivision and site plan applications that will be filed.
And I think that staff's position is that it's not simply just a checklist, but it's a preliminary review by whatever entity, and here we've chosen a third-party review. Okay, so, and while I hear what you're saying, that it's your view as to what constitutes completeness, I think we have a different view of that.
Well, I certainly respect that. What I would say, however, is that we have no issue with the board receiving a third-party review. In fact, we're willing to pay for it.
And this has been reiterated through the number of discussion sessions that we had.
Positively.
Through the course of over the past year. I just want to call attention to in our ordinance 2.8.8.1.1 is that review consideration provides the provision of town of Londonderry zoning ordinance, site plan regulations, subdivision regulations, and other applicable town, state, and federal laws are appropriate. So what this does, it puts it in the context of how we traditionally review site plans, subdivision plans. So, I mean, there's some similarities, but there are also differences. But the thing is, we have to think of the continuity of how we do things, because we require third-party review for a 2-lot subdivision, for a small daycare center, and you have to remember, this is a 625-acre development, and this is a master plan. Master plans of this extent are going to require engineering also, because we want to know what's going to happen. What are the impacts? That's the important part of it.
Yeah.
And I think we have to answer those questions first.
We're in no way looking to deprive the board of an independent review. We're just simply looking to have the submission requirements that are clearly stated in 2.8.9.2 of the PUD ordinance measured against our submission, so that the board can say, just as an administrative matter, either that material is in the application or it isn't. If we're accepted as complete, we then enter the merits review of the application, and whomever is consulting with the board will provide input as to whether or not our submissions measure up with the requirements and the objectives of the ordinance.
Yeah, but that checklist has to be done in spirit of our existing regulations also. This is what 2.8.8.1.1 says, and also 2.8.8 also is a review with the master plan. So that's a critical part, is the continuity of the whole thing, and that's what we're looking for. I think you'd want to look for that also, so that this is something that's going to fit the community.
And I'm not looking to be argumentative. I'm just suggesting that it's our view that that review occur in the review period of the application, in the 65-day review clock evaluation period that happens after the completeness of the application is determined.
Yeah, I think it's an area where we have concerns. I think even our attorney has concerns also. Andre?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to take you back to when the application was submitted. It was submitted on October 14th of this year. Even though staff had offered that prior to the applicant, prior to submitting it, we might want to sit down and make sure all the ingredients are there, but the applicant opted to submit the application anyways. Once we, and that was turned in on Friday, October 14th. Subsequently, an email was sent to the applicant's representative, Attorney Michaels, requesting that, based on our based on our RFP ordinance, you're eligible to be heard on November 2nd for this application. The applicant John Michaels replied that no, it's not the intent of the applicant to cram this application down his throat. We can we'll postpone it to the next available meeting. I said, well, all right, we can put you on for the December 7th meeting. He said, well, if it's all right with you, could we postpone that to December 14th because he will be out of town on December 7th. So that's what we did. Subsequent to that, on November 2nd, the board, through the chairman, asked me to put an item under staff review for a third-party review, and that's what we did. Is that they have third-party review on that. Attorney Pollack gave me a call and said, I understand that this item might be on the agenda. I said, we have to coordinate some of our consultants on these items, and therefore, boy, we like to be present for those types of discussion. I said, well, the board had requested that that this particular item be on the agenda, so it was put on the agenda, and the board on November 2nd had a discussion with regard to a third-party review that night, and directed staff to prepare an RFP in accordance with that decision. The turnaround time, again, the board had one meeting in between the December 7th meeting and the November 7th, 2nd meeting, and at which time we just know that the staff would not have been ready to present a RFP proposal to the board at its subsequent meeting on November 9th. The next available meeting that the board held was December 7th, and the staff came to the board that night with their RFP proposal in hand, a draft of the RFP proposal for the board's review, and subsequently we handed that to the applicant. And that night, after the planning board meeting, I emailed a copy of that to Attorney Pollack for consideration. Tonight, what you have here at the direction of the board at the December 7th meeting was that if there's any input received from the draft RFP to tonight, that those be brought to the board for consideration, and that is where we're at right now. The board decided that a third-party review was going to be warranted from the acceptance level all the way through to the end. That's what the direction of the board was, and that's why, and that's what we're proceeding with. And therefore, before the board can move forward with the acceptance of this application, that the third-party review, or at least that's staff's understanding, the third-party reviewer should be hired and on board prior to that happening. I think that was clear. It was clear on December 2nd. It was clear on December 7th.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to approach this in an expeditious way, and I think we've done some acceleration of probably what it would have taken us, and I think the issue at hand right now is the RFP.
Yeah.
And we want to discuss that.
And that's what, and I concur with Mr. Kettenbach, is that, this has been a long time in the making. I think a lot of people in this audience have been involved with the two design charrettes that happened as a result of the purchase of this property. And I know there's been a certain amount of staff time being put into working with the applicant leading up to the application submittal on October 14th. So that there's no qualms whatsoever with regard to the amount of time the applicant has put in there, because I know staff has put in a lot of time as well. And but here we are now. The board's decision was to hire a third-party consultant. That's what we proceeded with, and that's what we're here to review with you tonight. and hopefully we can conclude as to what the final form of that RFP is going to be, so we can move forward with this in a timely fashion, so we can, again, not extend this review period any more than it has to. And at the end of this review of the RFP, I do have a proposed schedule that I want the board to consider and provide direction.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I understand that we haven't gotten past page 1, but
Yes.
I understand that the item on the agenda we're talking about is the RFP, but I would point out that the very next item after the withdrawn application is the Woodmont PUD application, and it states for application acceptance and public hearing. So we're not going to get very far before this issue is right back at us.
That is correct.
If you want to defer that discussion until then, I have no objection, but
No, I think we want to move with the RFP. I think we need to get the third party in place as expeditiously as possible.
we are, according to the agenda, prepared to discuss with the board tonight acceptance of the application and to make a presentation as to why the items required by the PUD ordinance have been submitted as part of that application.
Yeah, we'll get to that when we
Thank you.
get to the public hearing part of it. Right now, we're just discussing the RFP, which we want to get completed, and we'd like to get that, if we come to an agreement tonight on what it should be, it'll go to our attorney for review, and then it'll be out on Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome. Okay,
Move
Andre.
forward. All right, so we've covered page 1. Moving on to the introduction.
I have a question about January 4th, the January 4th date that was proposed in there.
Yes.
Given the fact that a lot of people have off Monday, January 2nd, I propose that it be Friday, January 6th, at the very earliest.
It was a suggestion from staff to try to expedite this as fast as possible. As you can see in the representative's copy, they had a timeline of December 30th, and by providing those few extra days, it at least gives an applicant a full, solid 2 weeks in order to not only respond to a proposal but submit a proposal to the town. So, and also January 4th happens to be a planning board meeting date, the first planning board meeting date. So that's why it was suggested that January 4th be there. So we'll have a second planning board meeting in order to consider other aspects of the RFP.
I'd like to leave it at January 4th as well, only because I think people are wanting business and they'll do the job. I mean,
Yes, that's to keep it moving along as quickly as we can and giving it proper review. That's also a board meeting. We can open bids that night. It'll be a public meeting, and the bids will be for public review also.
So in the introduction, again, there are several textual changes that were made by the applicant, which we mostly agree with the exception of the third paragraph down, the sentence that says the board anticipates the review work to begin as soon as the consultant is selected, and then the applicant had put in anticipates that the review and consultation work begin as soon as the applicant is selected. And again, I would recommend to the board to move forward with the proposed by staff.
Board comfortable with that?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move along.
Dropping down to background, again, there is a few textual changes that were offered by the planning board, which I made, and that has to do with this capitalizations and wordsmithing. And then on the sentence, paragraph starting with on January 4th, 2010, there were some amendments suggested by the applicant, and again, the staff doesn't have any issue with those proposals.
Okay, board all set? Okay.
Yes.
Move along.
Scope of work, this is where you find most of the differences between staff's copy and the applicant's. And And I'll go through staff's copy. And again, at the beginning of the scope of service, there were some suggestions made by planning board members, and those are highlighted where it says they assist in the review of the application for completeness, planning and engineering, qualitative review of the PUD application, called Woodmont Commons here and called PUD application. And then there's this insertion of applicants. The gist of the, one of the significant changes is that, and I'll start at, if the PUD application is accepted by the planning board as complete, the consultant will then be retained to provide assurance that the application is, one, complete and may be accepted by the board, and two, subject matter expertise, which is wording that the applicant had chose to use and we accepted. Guidance and assistance to the board in the reviewing the merits, design, technical aspects, and that's different from what the applicant had put in there. The applicant material and the project to confirm the plan complies with all aspects of Londonderry's PUD ordinance, see Appendix C. Balanced with the design and the technical review of the PUD application and the PUD ordinance will be the input of the residents, property owners, and stakeholders of Londonderry, including the applicants and other regional interests. And the applicants and other regional interests is something that the applicant had suggested that we agreed with. And staff, in regards to the PUD to Pro, the time frame for this contract will start from the board's hiring of a consultant pursuant to this RFP for the review of the PUD application for application acceptance, and end at the time the board makes its final decision on the PUD. And the applicant had wording, and I'll go back to actually to the top of that a lot of the wording with regard to the owners of the PUD applicant to ensure the application contained, those were all stricken out as you can read. To provide subject matter expertise, guidance, and assistance to the to the board reviewing the merits of all elements of the application material and the project, and to confirm the plan complies with all aspects of the PUD ordinance. Balanced with review of PUD application and the PUD ordinance will be input from the residents, property owners, stakeholders in Londonderry, including applicant and other regional interests. In regards to the PUD proposal, the timeframe of this contract will start from the planning board determination of completeness or its selection of a consultant pursuant to this RFP, whichever is later, and end at the time the board makes its final decision. And therefore, you can see the contrasting views of what the staff was recommending and what the applicant.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just summarize what we were looking for in that paragraph, all of the differences of what was suggested by us versus what was accepted by staff relate to whether or not the application would be accepted as complete before or after the consultant was retained by the board. We were simply stripping out the information relating to having the consultant comment on acceptance because it was our position that we hoped that would happen tonight.
Right, and from our November meeting, there seemed to be an agreement, even from you, that, you know, the application acceptance will be part of the third-party review.
We had certainly hoped this process would move more quickly than it has.
I think all of us wish, but...
We also recognized our ability to grant extensions of the review clock after the acceptance, and when we get to the next agenda item, I'll be happy to share my discussions with Attorney Mayer on those subjects. He and I both had some ideas of how we could accommodate the board's desire to build in more time for that, all based upon the notion that we were looking for acceptance of the application.
Yes.
Yeah. Just so, and not trying to be argumentative, but the contrast with that was that the applicant, the staff's position was that of the direction the board gave us, is that our understanding was that the board wanted the third-party review consultant on board to help with the acceptance of the application all the way through to the final decision. And so that's why you'll see a lot of contrast in there, as Attorney Pollack had indicated. Moving on to the second aspect, where it starts with responses.
Can I ask you a question, Andre, before we move on? Going back to the time frame for this contract, the last sentence. Are we clear on that? You know, it reads to me like the contract's going to start, or the time frame is when we make our selection, and it's going to end when the board makes its final decision on the PUD application.
Correct.
I mean, what is that final decision date? Is it 60 days from the time that we accept the application as being complete?
65 days.
65 days?
Yeah. At whatever time, whether that time frame is extended by the applicant or not, that's why I just left it at final decision.
But the start date is when? When we accept the...
When we hire, as far as this RFP is concerned, when we hire the consultant, that's when we sign a contract with this consultant, that's when it starts. The time frame for this consultant starts, and it ends when the final decision is made.
Okay.
I said I had some wording in there, but I like the wording from the planning board a little bit better, because it starts at the hiring and ends at the decision. So the second part of that it would be the responses to the RFP shall be made by the firm or teams of firms, specialists in the field of land development, planning, and engineering, having an in-house or subcontract professional staff of multiple disciplines necessary to support the review of Woodmont Commons PUD application, including but not limited to planning, architecture, urban design, including experience with new urbanism concepts, traditional neighborhood development, etc., civil engineering, traffic, pedestrian parking consideration. And this is an item that was inserted by the applicant that, again, staff accepted consideration the provision of essential municipal services, financial and economic services, and such other capabilities or services as may be necessary or useful to fulfill the requested services identified by the board. And then what will be inserted, a full set of the application material going to be found in, and we're going to insert there the website site so they can look at all the material that's been submitted. And moving to the what the applicant proposed is that most of it, the land development planning, which was struck out, was engineering. So it would read, shall be made by a firm or teams of firms and specialists in the field of land development planning. And again, engineering struck out, having in-house or subcontracted professional staff or of multiple disciplines necessary to support the review of the Woodmont Commons PUD. And the rating was pretty much the same as I read before. Although civil engineering, after it says new urbanism concept, traditional neighborhood development, civil engineering was struck out, and financial and economic services was also struck out in the applicant's copy. And getting down to the consultant's review of the PUD. And the staff's recommendation was that we have items A through G. The consultant's review of the Woodmont PUD will include, but not limited to, the review of the Woodmont PUD application, review of the Woodmont Commons 2 design charrette information, review of all planning board minutes of all workshop meetings and discussions held in regards to the Woodmont Commons proposal, review of all ordinances, regulations, policy, long-range plans associated with the Plan Unit Development Ordinance, attendance and participation of all board meetings at which Woodmont Commons would be heard or discussed if required by the board, and that's something that the applicant suggested and we and staff agreed with. Attendance and participation at all meetings at which Woodmont Commons PUD application will be reviewed and discussed if required by the board, and other topics, other topic areas as deemed appropriate by the consultant and the board. And the applicant's copy had all items A through G identified, but they struck out items B and C and their copy. And the other items, D through E, are as the same or as agreed upon by staff.
Andre?
Yes.
Is there any reason that E and F cannot be combined into one and just the applicant's participation at all meetings at which Woodmont Commons will be heard or discussed
Well, again, the original wording of E and F is, one was planning board meetings, and obviously we want to consult in at all our planning board meeting, which the
I
applicants.
understand that, but then we're turning right around and saying that they will be at all meetings.
Well,
Why
we
not
originally had
combine the
staff
two?
meetings.
I understand, but now we're striking staff.
Okay.
Why not just combine it into one and label it all meetings?
Meetings in which Woodmont would be discussed,
Yes.
you know.
That
whether it's court meeting or-
includes planning board meetings, staff meetings, any meeting in which Woodmont Commons will be discussed.
I'm not sure why you took out the words planning and staff. I would suggest that those go back in.
We're not the ones that took it out.
Well, even town council meetings too, or, you
What's that?
know. I think you should specify the three meetings that might be held where these would be discussed. Town council, planning board, and
Meetings with staff.
staff. And you can combine it into one bullet, but I still think
Yeah.
that the three types of meetings that might
Yeah,
happen.
I would agree.
Staff, we were the ones that
They're the
struck
ones
the
that
word
did.
staff. We struck the word staff because there may be other groups that have meetings relating to this project. Like, for example, this board found that it had regional impact. So the Southern New Hampshire Regional Planning Commission is likely to have a meeting. That wouldn't be a board meeting or a staff meeting, but it would be a meeting that relates to the project that you may very well want to have your consultant participate in.
Yeah, and certainly the Southern New Hampshire Planning will be involved with this.
I'm sorry?
Southern New Hampshire Planning will be involved with this project.
Oh, yes, we understand that.
Mr. Chairman, that type of meeting would be facilitated by staff, so I think it would be covered.
Okay. That would be covered by staff meetings.
Correct.
Well, I mean, I guess you could specify every type of meeting that is possible, or you could say meetings covers everybody. I mean,
Yeah.
I guess I.
That was our
to your
point.
That was the thought.
I think if you just say all meetings.
We weren't trying to
then-
limit it.
We don't want you to limit the ability of your consultant to
Right.
be at all meetings relating to the project.
Yeah, and that's why we agreed with the wording, because I think it covers everything else. Even though
Yeah,
it may
yeah.
sound redundant, but I
Makes
think it covers it.
I think, combine it into one and just say all meetings, and I think you've got everything covered.
Mr. Chairman, I would
Yes.
point out that we were looking to strike items B and C. Those items relate to historical meetings for the charrettes and other conceptual discussions that led up to the applications. There's probably thousands of pages of information relating to that process. And since we're interested in an efficient review of whether or not our application measures up with the ordinance and the ordinance's requirements, we did not want to bog down whoever the selected consultant is with going through a lot of history that may never have made it to the actual application.
I agree.
I do too.
Personally.
Well, I think it should be there, because in case they want to look at it for reference or whatever. Because history is always a good reference. And I think what we would impress upon our third-party reviewer is timeliness, you know.
It was our view, I certainly respect that some perspective would be appropriate, but it was our view that rather than call those out as items to be specifically quoted by those who respond and bid, item G, which was a bit of a catch-all for other topics deemed appropriate by the board and the consultant, would allow the consultant to say to the board, we'd like to review X, Y, and Z, and the board can say, we were there, we weren't there, that's helpful, that's not helpful.
Yeah, I think leaving them there, and then we can work with the consultant on it, and so when they shouldn't get bogged down on what's happened in the
I
past.
think what we're trying to say is that whoever's trying to respond to the RFP is going to have to take into consideration the number of hours and the amount of reading and the amount of catch-up that they're going to be provided and having to do to respond to the board. And that in turn will affect their quote, monetarily and time-wise, for both of us.
Hold the board.
Okay. How does the board feel about leaving B and C in there? I'll start with Rick.
Don't need it.
Don't need it. Tom?
Am I correct that most of the design charrette information has changed significantly since you've made your formalized plan?
There was no question that it was an evolving concept that
Right.
changed throughout all of those meetings. Reading the first meeting is not going to provide much insight on what the last meeting
No, I think I
concluded.
agree with you then, yeah.
Dana?
I would say, I agree, take it out. The applicant, if they want the history, they know it's available, they can go after it.
Okay. Mary?
I think it should.
Okay. Lynn?
Yeah, I agree with removing it.
Laura?
Me too. We've said include but not limited to, so they're free to look at that and it might be useful, but I don't think we need to include it for the purposes of a proposal.
Okay. Lisa?
I'm okay with striking B, I'm not okay with striking C. C is planning board minutes. I think that's essential. Granted, they should be doing their homework anyway, but
That's
I don't
something they could
think
take it
that
up.
should be removed.
I'm sure they'd ask for. Maria?
I agree with Letha. I think the same thing. B, you could take out B and leave C. And then G kind of covers other topics as deemed appropriate, so.
Yeah. Well, the majority has taken up B and C.
Okay, and from the staff perspective, some historical perspective was what we were looking to have, so that whoever gets brought on board has a good history of what has transpired, so as we look forward, I think they'll have an even better perspective of what we're looking at, so that was just the attempt.
Okay.
So take out B and leave in C, is that what I'm hearing?
Well, I would like to amend mine to, I think C is valuable.
Okay.
The minutes of the planning board meeting, I don't think that's an outrageous amount of material to have to read either.
Laura?
Just for the purposes of getting a proposal, I'm not sure C is important, but I could go either way.
Okay. Lynn?
Yeah, I'm okay with leaving C in.
Okay. Dana?
I'll go with what I initially said.
Okay. Tom?
I would think he'd look at the minutes if he thought he might be useful,
Yeah.
but I really think B should be out, yeah.
Okay. So it's leaving C in.
All right.
And B is struck. Yeah, we're going to get through this first, Jack. That's before we.
Do we reserve time on that particular point when we go back to it?
Do you have a comment on it? Yeah, why don't you come to the microphone, and then we might as well take it while we go along.
Jack Falvey on the removal of the review of the two design charrette information for the review of the project. The charrettes made some very, very specific proposals and accusations of the town, which are the fundamental concepts of the entire village concept, i.e. that the town was a victim of urban sprawl. Secondly, the numbers proposed at the charrette, 1,300 dwellings, have not changed since the initial proposal. Many superficial changes have gone in. So I think we should not try and erase history, and that the RFP should include the review of those initial assumptions, because those initial assumptions were not accepted by the people of the town. They were presented de facto and then constantly reviewed in various meetings but never changed. So the fundamental concept of the proposal has remained identical since those charrettes were presented, and there are some very, very big questions to be answered about the assumptions that they made in their initial presentation. So I would recommend that that item be kept into the RFP. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I agree with you, but I'm overruled by the board.
Yeah, Art, I understand what Mr. Falvey says, but I guess those assumptions are still part of what we're looking at. That's
Yeah,
why
and we can always
that's
take
why
care of
I
that
say what I
under,
say.
under G, other topics as deemed appropriate by the consultant and the board. So we'd make clear to them that there are, if they want to review those. And certainly we have a consultant, you'll spend some time with him too, Jack.
Well, I mean, I understand where everybody's coming from, but the bottom line is that, to the point for whoever's going to submit a bid, for them to have to go look at all this stuff prior to submitting a bid is only going to delay them, and it's something that we can recommend they do after we've hired the consultant.
Yeah, that's a possibility. But it's definitely part of the record and should be, part of the review process, my own opinion.
It's not even part of the record, though, is it?
Yeah.
Part of what record? The charrettes?
Well, it's the public record.
Right.
It's a public record. It's, everyone knows it's there. I'm sure a lot of people were there also, so they know.
So Just for us keeping score at home, B is out, C is still in.
C is in, and I think the design charrette will be definitely mentioned to them as part of G. Get around it that way.
Okay, so moving along.
No, not
Okay,
yet. I still got some questions with that. What is the deliverable we're expecting from the consultant? I don't see that specifically listed anywhere. We say review, but what's a review?
The review of,
What's the output we're expecting from the consultant?
well, actually, we want two outcomes. One is to review the application material to make sure it meets with our guidelines within our PUD regulations for acceptance.
Well, that's what we're asking them to do, but what are they going to deliver back to us, saying that they've done that review and what their assessment
Going to
is?
deliver to the board a recommendation that, one, either the application meets our requirements, therefore the board ought to accept it, or not recommend the board and identify the items where it's deficient.
I don't see any language in here jumping out at me saying this is what we specifically expect the consultant to deliver to us.
And I guess that's, what's implied with application acceptance.
Yeah, I'm
is
just
that-
nervous
yeah.
about implication. I'd rather have something spelled out concrete there.
I think what you just said is perfect to add to that, someplace in this RFP. It's the board's expectation that the consultant will provide
Because
a
someone could-
recommendation.
Someone come back and say, yep, we agree, and they've done the review, and then they walk away. I mean, that's a gross exaggeration, but I just think we should nail down what our expectations are. And when we expect them. We say the contract is done in a certain period of time, but when do we expect their assessment to be complete?
Well, the assessment for the first part would be complete if the board accepts the application. Either accepts it or they identify what's deficient. And therefore, obviously, if they identify what's deficient, the applicant has the ability to correct those deficiencies, resubmit the application, and then it moves forward. And then from that point on, in accordance with this, then they're gonna be reviewing the merits, design, and technical aspects all the way through to a recommendation for a decision on the application, whether that's up or down.
But when do we expect that?
So Andre, is it realistic to say, if they come back on January 4th, and we have all these proposals, and we open them up and we hire somebody, that by January 11th, which is the next meeting, they would have an opinion as to whether or not the application is complete? Is it, that's all I'm just, I think that's what you're asking.
That's what I'm asking.
Or
Is it-
By February.
should
Is
it be
it February
February
12th?
12th,
Is it
the
whatever
first
the
meeting in
date
February,
is?
the second meeting in
I
February,
think we
whatever.
should set a specific expectation when we want to
Right.
see
Or do
this
we have a third
information.
meeting in
I'm
January?
gonna get to that, timeframe in a sec, I guess.
Okay,
once
I
we
didn't
get
see
to
it.
this.
Should it be part of this submission, this RFP? Is it part of this RFP, what you're gonna get to?
Well, actually, yes, it would be included in the RFP if, actually, I don't know if it's really, should be included in the RFP, but I think it's a timeframe that I think if the board agrees to, that's the timeframe we're gonna adhere to.
Yeah, and I think this
Well,
should be in the RFP, so
yeah.
that
They need to
So
know.
that they
Yeah, if
know.
we're gonna put an accelerated schedule
Yeah.
that we're gonna expect the consultant to adhere to, then it should be part
It'll
of the
be
RFP.
Appendix E.
Let's
then.
set the
It'll be in there.
expectation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if they're gonna bid for it, they need to know
Yeah,
what
they
the
need to
dates
know.
are.
They need to know what kind of time frame they're bidding to.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay. We moving on?
move on,
Okay.
move on.
Getting to proposal submissions. Again, the staff is staying with the Londonderry Plan Unit Development Planning and Engineering Review Services. Again, the applicant's proposal is to replace that with consultation. They had a time frame of December 30th for the responses. I had put there Wednesday, January 4th, again, being, I guess, almost a week later, but it's at a planning board meeting in which we can get all the proposals, and that night, open those proposals. And again, I will refer to my time schedule once I'm completed with this. But January 4th is what we're recommending. And As far as the submissions, the addition from the applicant was that, what from staff was that the proposal be submitted to my office within the time frame submitted, and the applicant had added that with a copy to the applicant sent via first-class mail and electronic mail to the following: R.B. Pollock at Gallagher, Callahan, and Cottrell. And staff is still recommending that we move forward with it, with the understanding that the applicant will be working for the planning board.
Yeah, they should come right to the board.
Correct.
We were simply looking to be copied on what we're going to be asked to pay for.
Oh,
And I think there's provision in there that when they submit their proposals, we were requesting 7 paper copies and 1 electronic copy of the proposal. So anybody, obviously the applicant will get a copy of that, but anybody else who would want a copy of that.
That's not how it worked tonight. I got this for the first time when I sat down in this chair. I would prefer that the people submitting bids send me a copy, and then I know that I've received exactly what they've submitted.
The bids will be sealed until Wednesday,
yeah, they'll be
Until we open them
sealed until they're
publicly.
open right here, so no one has access to them ahead of time.
I could certainly have them that day then, or shortly thereafter, but I would like ultimately a copy of exactly what's been filed from the applicants or the submission parties.
Andre?
What I suggest is that, given that we're going to be, if the board's agreed that we will opening them up that night, a full set of those copies of those proposals will be given to the applicant at that point in time.
Right. So when we open the bids, they're there for anyone in the public and you also to receive them. Okay. Move along.
Andre,
Question?
oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Andre, are you aware that it's just a typo, but the 2011 is written under the first January 4th date on that one?
Oh.
Should read 2012.
You got it. Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Len.
Oh, no problem. The last paragraph of that section of Section 4 says, "Respondent shall be available to confer with the board during January 2012." What are we looking for there? What's the intent of that sentence?
Yeah, and actually, staff is in agreement. I think it alerts those the consultants that we're on a tight time frame, and therefore they should be ready. If they're going to submit a proposal to the town for this work, that we're going to look to turn this around relatively quickly, so they should be ready.
Do we want to give
So
it?
the 15 people that are going to respond to this all have to be here at the meeting?
My understanding is that during January 2012, so if our timeline does fall within that period, is that, once we open the bids, we're looking to review those, interview, and have a decision on the applicant, consultant, within a very short time. So if they're going to respond to that, I believe that wording is saying that be prepared.
Do we want to, I think we should put a
And
specific
I think
date.
if I'm wrong in that, please.
Yeah, I was the one that suggested that language. My point was simply to imply that there's some urgency to have folks available so that the decision process can move forward. I don't know if the board is going to want to have a select number of bidders come to a meeting and conduct some sort of a question and answer session. I don't know if you're going to form a subcommittee. I didn't know exactly what process you wanted folks to subscribe to, but I wanted to warn them that their availability would be an issue.
Yeah, and I just think we should put a specific date there. I'm not sure if that has to be a meeting that's publicly noticed or something like that. I suspect it does. And I hate to say just during January, because January 31st and January 4th are distinctly different things.
Yeah, and I think that's something that I think the board will have to discuss with regard to that, because a couple things, according to my proposal, will need to take place. One, I think we will need to, in order to stay to the timeframe that I'm suggesting, we'll need to have a subcommittee. Again, the board only has 2 meetings, and therefore I think we need a subcommittee, even though those subcommittee meetings will be public meetings, and anybody's welcome, but I think in order to expedite this, we'll need a subcommittee, and again, that will be part of my schedule and proposal.
Yeah, we're going to need that flexibility to expedite this.
Can we settle on a date tonight and make that date part of
I
this?
think Andre's got some suggestions.
Yeah.
Or even a series of a few dates if we are not sure how many applicants we're going to get or what have you. But yeah, I agree that it would be good to give a few dates and say, be available be ready to be available on one of these
No,
days.
absolutely. I read Lynn along the clears that I think we have to have a dates as to when things are going to take place, so we know what to expect and when to expect it and when the decisions are going to be made. So,
But you're asking for dates, though. Let me understand what you're asking for, Lynn. You're asking for dates of when they can be available for interviews?
No, telling them when to be available. I mean, we're driving the
Yeah,
car, right?
January.
No, so January 2nd, January 5th?
Well, if it's due to the 4th,
I know,
right?
but January.
Okay.
January
No, but
31st?
if we say get on a plane and fly here or whatever,
better
to
not be
interview with
flying.
us for a few hours during the day on such and such a day during
I mean,
business
Andre
hours.
has a
But you have to
timeline.
be there too, is my point.
I understand.
Okay.
Well-
So you're ready to break up in your calendar and,
Might I interject?
I know my calendar as it is today, so if it's January 23rd, I won't be here.
okay.
But, but be that as it may.
That's why we have alternates, so.
Exactly, but I think we just need to have some real finite dates.
Yeah, and if I can get through
Around
this,
a lot of these
and
activities.
I
Forget
promise
it,
you,
Andre,
I'll
you're
get
not
to
good
that.
for it.
Okay, we're doing good, just finish up, then we'll do dates.
Okay, Mike?
I think that when you set the date, you're gonna have to, when you open these, you're gonna have to have a subcommittee go through them and make sure that they're qualified. And you're gonna have to make sure that you're comparing apples with oranges. You're gonna have some crazy applications for review, and you're gonna have to reject them at hand. And so the people that you're gonna invite back, you're gonna feel that they're the most qualified, and then you're gonna choose from those most qualified, based on the money they're gonna spend, the time, and their qualifications and past history in dealing with, quote-unquote, this type of development. And I think that that's something that happens, from what I've heard and what has been approved by this board, is January 4th, you're opening the proposals. At that point, you have to weed out
Right. That's what I
the
was
wheat
just
from
gonna
the
say.
shaft, and then bring the kernels to the meeting
Yeah.
for the independent review.
Yeah, we've just been
put
through
forward.
the master plan steering committee through that process, so.
So,
Staff is very familiar with it, so I think they have an idea what, in their mind, and that's what they're gonna have to convince us, and we will review it also. Okay, Andre?
Okay.
No, I just make one quick comment too. Mike, part of the reason of setting a date is to drive us as well.
excuse me.
Part of the reason of setting a date is to drive our activity to make sure this happens.
Absolutely, and I appreciate that, thank you.
Maria, did you want to say something?
Well, no,
before?
actually, it was just, I was going to say exactly that the January 4th meeting, we're just going to be opening up the proposal, so it probably doesn't make sense to have all these people come at that meeting. I would think the soonest would be the next meeting, that you would want to
That's
have some of the people that you've,
Because it's gonna take, and one of the things I think the board has to discuss also is use of the subcommittee to be able to be
Right.
flexible within that very short period of time to work with staff to review.
Right.
And we need to get through this first. Okay, come to the microphone, please, and name and address.
Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood. Do I understand this correctly, that you're going to give about 2 weeks to get this proposal out to prospective consultants, have them all returned by January 4th? We do have something called Christmas and, holidays in between. Is that what I'm hearing right?
That's the timeline that we're working at.
Now, this consultant you're looking for, don't you think there should be a little more time involved in selecting him? Because he's also going to be looking over the whole proposal afterwards, not just accepting this?
We're not hiring them on the 4th. We're just asking
That's when
people
we open the bids.
to come, to propose that they want the job, to apply for the job.
Right, 2 weeks over the Christmas vacation. I'm sorry, but this sounds like shades of 2 years ago with this December, January meetings for the PUD ordinance. It really does.
Well,
The rushing it and not looking over, backtracking over all we've gone through the charrettes and everything else, not even exposing them that. Maybe you should send it to them and then maybe the most qualified person will, or business, will have the, will actually look through it all.
We're looking for a very capable organization that can do this.
Correct.
And, I'm sure we'll find something through the bidding process.
Within the next 2 weeks.
But all we're looking for in that time is to find out who's interested in
Right.
doing this.
Right.
We're not going to be
Right.
selecting them or expecting them to have looked through the charrettes. We're just asking who's interested in being considered by that time.
Okay.
Yes, and development of an RFP response can take longer than 2 weeks for something this size. I believe that's the point that's being made.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And some people do have that Christmas week off for vacation. I know maybe other people have their nose to the grindstone,
Some
but,
do and some don't, so.
right. But
Business
just
has to
remember-
go on too, though. Business has to go on too.
Remember the importance of this election and the applicants. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Andre.
All right, the next item is limitation of liability, and, the applicant had proposed some wording, and the staff, and work with our legal counsel, found it's acceptable. Neither the town of Londonderry nor the applicant assumes responsibility or liability for costs incurred for the recipient of this RFP and responding to this RFP, or responding to any further requests for interviews, additional data, et cetera. And that has been, with the exception of nor the applicant, that has been template wording that we've had in our past RFPs. Is this the addition, and I don't think it's going to hurt the proposal. And
Proposal
and
format.
I think on item J, in the proposal, we're in agreement with the insertion under conflict of interest, where it indicates in red, applicants, officers, directors, managers, members, or others, and inserted into that conflict of interest section. And we're in agreement with that.
Andre?
Yeah.
I think above the word manages in red, the word current should be currently.
You say that again? I'm
Second,
Second,
line.
in conflict of interest in J.
Yeah.
Second line, proposer, and it says current after that, should say currently.
Currently, okay, gotcha. And then the proposed evaluation, the changes recommended there, the staff doesn't have an issue with inserting with recommendation from staff. And then on the last sentence, the insertion of the last paragraph of this, of the RFP is the applicant and their agent and representatives may attend any interviews of prospective candidates. And that's been consistent with what we have done in the past with regard to, not only the applicant, but anybody who wants to attend those interview sessions are free to do so.
Are those public meetings, or are they just?
They are public meetings.
Fully noticed?
Notice, yeah. And again, on the Appendix A, we just reinserted planning and engineering review services and struck out consultation. And obviously, on the applicant side, they have consultation, and they struck out engineering review, and which is basically consistent from the front page to this page. What will be inserted in the Appendix B would be the concept of the Woodmont Master Plan. This is the master plan itself that shows what the overall concept is. Obviously, within the RFP, direction will be given via the website to to where the documents are, the full documentation that was submitted on October 14th. And Appendix C would be the, Londonderry ordinance, the PUD ordinance that would be inserted. And lastly, in Appendix D would be the recommended schedule of services, and what staff is recommending is this. Starting with tonight, December 14th, 15th, finalize the RFP, establish a review committee, and I hope that the board will establish that review committee so we can keep this on task. December 15th to 18th, we'll advertise the RFP. We'll be able to advertise in the Sunday Globe, and we're going to be, our opportunity to put it in the Sunday Union Leader has passed, so we're going to get it into the Union Leader either on Monday or Tuesdays, Union Leader. And as well as we're going to be posting it on the Office of Energy and Planning website, much like we did with our master plan, and it has broad exposure, as well as the association with the Northern New England American Planners Association, and put it in there as well.
Any professional publications?
As far as the professional publications, as far as the time constraint is concerned, I don't think we'll be able to get it in there with enough time for it to be read by. That's why we're targeting the newspapers and
The
the
Municipal Association?
The Municipal Association would be in one of those, LGC.
Are there any online professional?
Well, and that's where the Northern New England American Plan Association is an online.
Planners Web, and a lot of blogs in the planning world.
And so the advertisement will take place between December 15th and 18th, now and the Sunday. January 4th, deadline and opening of the proposals. January 11th, review proposals, interview selection. Again, they give us a week to look over the proposals with the subcommittee, come back on the 11th with a short list of who we think the top applicants are. Between January 11th and 19th, interview and a recommendation at a special meeting on January 19th. The 18th, I believe, is the third meeting of the month, which I believe that is the ZBA would have this room. Therefore, the 19th, from the looks of the schedule, this room will be available for the planning board. And then on January 30th would be another special meeting, which would be a Monday, to meet on the application acceptance.
Mr. Rudd?
Yes.
I would like to recommend that the possibility that we might try to put it on the website of the Urban Land Institute. There are a lot of East Coast and Mid-Atlantic and Midwest reviewers that are very familiar with this type of process, and I wouldn't want them excluded because of their depth and breadth of expertise. And I think, if you can, you can, and if you can't, you can't. But I think that the Urban Land Institute is probably one of the best resources for possibly putting the RFP on their website.
It also will include the American Planners Association. There's the Northeast American Planners, but there's the American Planners Association, which, as a member, I can upload RFPs on there as well, as I did the master plan. So
okay,
I can do that as well and add that to
the Urban Land Institute is the ones that generated all the books that all these urbanists are familiar with, and that's the reason I wanted to make a recommendation that at least be looked into.
Yeah. I know at the design charrette, there were a number of engineer planners that had, were interested in working for the town. I got their cards. I passed that info all along to Andre and everything. See what because it seemed to be there was definitely strong interest in that community.
Yeah, I just mentioned it because when we started looking for people for the charrettes and experts to guide us, we looked nationwide, but and that was the first place. That was the first source of information that we went to, was the Urban Land Institute.
Yes, definitely. Sure, it's on there, Andre.
So that is the updates, contrasting views of the updates and what the staff is recommending. And my understanding, just to quickly go back through, was that with regard to the scope of work, it looks like the board's in agreement with moving forward with it, with the exception of eliminating item B and keeping item C. This is a textual change on one of the dates, and adding, if I'm clear, as to adding clarifying language as to the expectations.
Are they going to deliver to us?
Yeah.
And when do we want it?
Now, as far as when do you want it, the timeframe that I laid out, would that give you a clear understanding, at least up to acceptance? After acceptance, we have 65 days thereafter in order to obviously review and make a determination, so there is a timeframe associated with that.
But once again, I thought one of the things we were looking for from them was to help us determine if we accept it or not.
Yeah, and that's where it gets us from now until January 30th. January 30th is what we're, the meeting that we're proposing is for that determination on application acceptance.
Okay, so I missed that, I'm sorry.
Well,
January 30th meeting?
Well, you said January 11th is going to be the interview selection, the list of the top applicants, right? January 11th?
Yeah, review proposals and interview selection.
Okay, and then January 30th is when we are going to try to have a special meeting on application acceptance?
Actually, no, yes. January 11th, review and interview selection will be made at that planning board
Right.
meeting. And then between the 11th and the 19th, we will interview that group and make a recommendation to the planning board at the January 19th meeting.
Right.
And then between January 19th and January 30th, that's where the applicant, who we hire as a consultant, will do its review and be prepared on January 30th to make a
Okay.
recommendation to the planning board.
Would that be enough time, though? I mean, from the 19th to the 30th, I'm a little concerned. Is that going to be enough time for them to review and be able to be prepared for the 30th?
I think so. I mean, you have 11 days.
I
to
don't
review.
know,
Yeah.
you know,
Again, they're not.
the specifics.
Yeah, they're doing the review for acceptance to make sure that, and again, quite frankly, there's two ways it can go on the 30th. It could be a recommendation for acceptance and we move forward with there, or it could be a recommendation not to accept and identify the items that are deficient.
Okay, and that's just the first step in a very long process after
Correct.
that.
Correct.
Right? So there's many steps that their services are going to entail. This is just going to be, the first step is
It's gonna be
helping us with the
first part of what
acceptance.
we're hiring the consultant to do, is
Okay.
the application acceptance,
And just
correct.
so it's clear to everybody, then they will be on board from that point until,
Till the final decision is made on the application.
okay. Thank you.
Any more questions from the board? Come to the microphone and name and address, please.
Ron Dumont, 47 Pelricar Lane. Just a question, is there any contingency plan here as far as the dates? You guys are setting these things in stone, like you're gonna get qualified responses to your RFP. To the gentleman's point, sometimes it takes a few days to review the RFP and respond to it. To the lady's point, you're kind of shoveling all this stuff together. If you don't have qualified people, or the board doesn't select qualified people, it's gonna go far beyond these dates you're talking about. Why push for January 4th when you can go to the 19th and review and open them during that period? It gives more people time to respond so you can get in more qualified applicants.
I think once we get there, I think we're going to have to determine the flexibility. This is like a goal. If you don't have a good goal, you'll never get there.
And Mr. Chairman, if we don't get enough proposals by the 4th, we can always discuss that at the 4th meeting, right?
Yes, right.
I would just point out, in reviewing the draft, that there is Roman 11 on page 7 that discusses the right of the town to reject all of the proposals, be it because of insufficiency of number or quality, and to essentially have a do-over of some kind, adjusting for whatever the board perceives went wrong.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's been wording that we've had in all of our RFPs, that if we don't get qualified applicants, we can make sure that we do.
Okay. You all set, Andre?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so what we'll do is we get this out tomorrow and then send it to our attorney for review, and we'll follow the schedule. The only other question I have of the board is a subcommittee, and who would like to be on that? We can't have any more than 4 people.
And before you do the subcommittee, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to confirm, there was some discussion, but I didn't hear any resolution. This RFP would be posted on the Urban Land Institute website?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
If that's the board choosing, yeah, I've added it, but if the board,
I don't have no objection.
you have no objection?
No problem.
Yeah. Now, I guess the only issue I would have is that sometimes, like the APA, you have to be a member of the APA in order to post the RFP at no cost, and therefore, therefore I can do that. Now, I don't know if the Urban Land Institute has the same policy or not, that you have to be a member in order to get there, but obviously I'll find out.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, for tonight, we're comfortable with the board's stated preference that it be added there. If there's some impediment, we'll be happy to discuss it.
Last but not least, I'm a member.
Okay. There's a source.
That's of any help.
Okay, so I think the subcommittee's going to be flexible and meet at varied times and probably during the day even.
So I'd be interested in being on the subcommittee.
Okay, Mary?
Are we primarily talking about between the 4th and the, between the 11th and the 19th?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Basically,
Yeah.
make some space available in your day, evening.
Well,
I'll do it.
okay, so Mary, Letha,
If it was daytime work, I could do it.
okay.
Well, are you available during the day, Letha?
I am.
Are you?
On most days,
I mean,
yeah.
afternoon, not school day hours, but after school day
I got a
hours?
babysitter.
I mean, even if we.
I'll carve time.
It has to be a public meeting,
It's open to the public, but I mean, it could be
Public,
scheduled
but we haven't-
anytime.
right?
Yeah.
Just how they did it with
But I'm
the
just saying, she
Master
has
Plan
kids
Steering
that we
Committee.
could go to her house.
Yeah, with the Master Plan
That's
Steering
big
Committee,
cameras.
we've had them open to the public, but they haven't always been televised.
Correct.
But
They're
they're
public
clearly
meetings.
posted and marked and open to the public. And, if anyone wants to attend, they can.
Okay, so Mary, Laura,
You know, honestly, if it's outside of school hours, as much as I'd love to be involved, I don't think that I can commit to something that's going to be that demanding that week.
okay. Okay. We'll be flexible with it. Anyone else can just email Andre. But probably 4 is getting toward a quorum. 3 is probably more flexible. Also?
Definitely like the board's involvement, obviously.
Okay. Anything else for discussions with town staff?
No, I think I monopolized as much as time with the boards that I
This is a
need to.
long discussion with staff, but I think critical. Okay, so we'll move along with the agenda. Continued plans, this is just an announcement. Tammy M. Varani, 2004 Revocable Trust, Tax Map 17, Lot 34, which is a continued public hearing for a 5-lot subdivision and conditional use permit, was continued from November 9th, 2011 Planning Board meeting, has been withdrawn by the applicant. And moving along, next item, which is a public hearing, Pillsbury Realty Development LLC, Tax Map 10, Lots 15, 23, 29C-2A, 29C-2B, 41, 41-1, 41-2, 42, 45, 46, 47, 48, 50, 52, 54-1, 58, 59, and 62. This is an application acceptance and a public hearing for a formal review of the Woodmont Commons Planned Unit Development Master Plan. And this part, it just deals only with acceptance. We're not dealing with the plan at all. We're just going to be reviewing whether the acceptance is complete or not. And it's just that simple determination that we have to make. Andre?
Yeah. In regards to the acceptance, obviously, it's a staff recommendation, given obviously the time we just spent on the RFP and the direction that the board has given staff, that
we engage a third-party reviewer for this application from application acceptance until final decision. Obviously, it is staff's recommendation that we postpone the acceptance of this application until such time we have that third-party reviewer on board and hired.
Yeah, that's been advised by our attorney, as we had discussed with him last week, and has been in communication with you too, Ari. So.
Yes, if I could comment on this issue.
Yes.
This feels like deja vu all over again, because what I'd like to do is just bring forward the comments I made at the beginning of the RFP discussion, so I don't have to repeat all of our position. But I do wish to have the record reflect clearly that we think that 676-4 subsection C subpart 1 obligates the board to review the application for completeness within 30 days of its submission, and that time is at least now, if not earlier than now. And when the board's agenda announced that completeness or acceptance of the application would be on, we prepared a presentation to demonstrate for the board's satisfaction that the items within 2.8.9, the section entitled Submission Requirements within the PUD ordinance, are in fact addressed by our application and our submissions, and that whether the merits of those submissions amount to an approvable application or not, I understand, will be the subject of consultation with your retained expert. But it's our position that the application could be accepted as complete because those components have been submitted and are present.
Yeah, I think it's what, from our attorney in this board's position, is that we really need the third-party review to determine to our satisfaction the completeness. Because looking through our whole PUD ordinance is a little more complex than that, than just a simple checklist. And that's why we want the closeness of the review for acceptance as complete.
And I wish to just bring, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to bring forward the other portion of my explanation previously that talked about the differences between a PUD application and site plan and subdivision and other traditional planning board applications, and that in our view, this is creating a master plan for a zoning overlay. The types of reviews that have been done on those other applications certainly would be appropriate at the time when applications under this zoning plan are ultimately submitted. And that is not what we're proposing now. We're proposing a PUD master plan. With respect to concerns that the board may have in accepting the application now, but then being squeezed on the review clock side of the equation, having that 65-day period start to run on you. I will share with the board, I did have discussions with Bart Mayer, the town's attorney, that the applicant would be willing to toll the running of the review clock until you had an opportunity to retain a qualified consultant. You would not need to be concerned about using up that clock during the selection process. I also spoke with him about finding some way to memorialize our offer of extensions of that clock should good faith efforts require more time, recognizing that this is a large project. Just place that on the record. Thank you.
Should we go ahead with this proposal? What happens if we don't accept the application as being complete? Where does that leave them right now? I mean, do
You
they
mean
just-
tonight?
Tonight.
One, it means that obviously the board has taken no action on that and didn't take jurisdiction over this application, thus starting the 65-day clock. And again, at the direction of the board opted under 676-4B, indicated that it wanted to move forward with a third-party consultant, and including in that third-party consultant was the application acceptance report.
Right, my question is, what if we choose not to accept the application tonight? What happens to them? Where does it go from there?
Then the project application acceptance will be delayed until, right now, if we stay by the schedule that we laid out with regard to the RFP, it would be January 30th.
But do they have to start over, is my question? Do they have
No, the same information that they have now, it will be the same information will be reviewed once we bring an application on. There's nothing new that they have to do with regard to their application, unless once our third-party reviews it, and if there's deficiencies in it, those deficiencies will be identified, and then the applicant will have an ability to address those deficiencies and resubmit.
But having been spoken to about a statute several times this evening, if we say we do not accept this application as being complete, have we met the criteria under that statute? Because we've given them a response.
It's not being complete, that
Yeah.
is a decision of the board, that the board can't make.
Right. So, and then that stops that 30-day window that we should have adhered to, or we're given permission to extend because we discussed about having the RFP and everything else. And then, go ahead, because I'm just trying to understand it.
Okay, the reason that you wouldn't probably choose to not accept the application is because you need to provide very concrete reasons as to why the application was deficient, and where
Why the application was deficient, is that what you
Deficient.
said?
Deficient,
Yes.
correct.
You know, I apologize, I am old and my ears are awful, so I really need you guys close to the mics so that I can hear you. Are you right at it?
I am.
Oh.
Where the application, for some reason, whether it's one item or 25 items, does not meet the requirements for acceptance, but you'd have to spell that out. Where the review was stayed pretty much right from the start, there is really no basis for doing that, so.
There's no basis for.
For not accepting it, or accepting it, either way. No review has commenced because they agreed with having a third-party review, and so you have nothing to base not accepting it, and you have nothing to base accepting it on, because no review.
Except for the fact that that should have been included in, before we accept it, the third-party review. Wouldn't that be the basis for not accepting it? Wouldn't that be the legal basis for not accepting it?
That's what the board wanted, was a third-party review.
Right, in which
acceptance.
the applicant also agreed to.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, Tom?
So you've had discussions with Bot Mayor regarding, you said something about coming to some memorializing of an agreement to toll things?
We had a discussion about how the application could be accepted as complete this evening, but give the board comfort that the 65-day clock would not be used as a club on the flip side of acceptance, and that you would have the time to retain a consultant, and that you could ask for extensions if, for example, you asked for information from the applicant and we took time to provide a response.
And then, you know.
I'm not suggesting in any shape or form that Attorney Mayer said he could make a decision for the board. This was simply a discussion that he and I had.
But, I mean, I would feel a lot more comfortable if our attorney was here and you guys came to an agreement and that was presented to us before we make decisions here, because as you've just heard, you know, without finding fault, no one's reviewed the application. Now, your position is that staff, I assume, could review it. Staff's position is they want third-party review of it. So nobody's done anything. So my problem is, as a board member, I wouldn't consider accepting a bathroom renovation with no review, and now you want us to review or accept an application for 600 acres. I mean, it just doesn't seem reasonable in my view. If you and Attorney Mayer can work out something where you've got some sort of memorialized agreement, because I'll tell you this, there's been a lot of confusion here between what people said, what people remembered, and I'm not saying anybody's wrong, but I think we all would be better off if we had a writing down and we knew what the dates were and we knew what the terms were. And so I frankly, as one member, don't feel comfortable committing any kind of vote, taking some action that's irrevocable without, you know, without town council coming to an agreement with you guys, the reasonable agreement. And I'm entirely on board with moving the process of getting the third-party review done. as expeditiously as possible. Doesn't seem to make any sense to me to delay that. But I think we have 2 questions and 2 tracks here. That one we seem to have made some progress on. Maybe people aren't happy with it, but at least we're going in the right direction. But this one, I mean, it seems to me that if you guys have talked, you guys can come up with something. And if you need us to come back and have a 3rd meeting to approve it, you know, or to do whatever we have to do, I would feel more comfortable as a board member, instead of being in the dark here about what I'm going to do. Because if you're going to force me to guess, I'm going to err on the side of caution. And I'm going to say, I've been told by staff that nobody's reviewed it. I'm going to ask to table this right now.
I think that that's helpful, and I thank you for saying that. And I guess my question is whether the other board members share your view of that, and if that is the case, we can try to make something like that happen.
Yeah, I guess my concern is that you want us to go ahead and accept this application tonight, which I appreciate that. And you've stated that, you know, yeah, you'll expend the 65-day clock. I guess my concern is this is an extremely large project. Myself, I'm not comfortable, especially since there's been no review whatsoever of it, without moving ahead without a consultant helping us. So let's say we did, the other thing is, if we did accept this application, now we're into the 65-day clock, even with extensions, whatever. Then we get our consultant on board, and he finds things that were deficient. Then we're stuck. Then we don't have, unless I'm wrong, we really don't have much choice but deny acceptance of the whole thing, and everybody starts over. Personally, I mean, if you're willing to extend the 65-day clock, and we're looking at an expedited timeline to get a consultant on board and move forward with this, I think it would be beneficial to all parties to delay the acceptance till we get the consultant. Then we get the consultant, they can review this, they're already going to know that it's going to be an expedited review. Then we can move forward into the 65-day clock, and chances are, with the consultant on board, we may not have to do any extensions. We're probably looking at the same time frame.
I agree.
Lisa, did you have something you wanted to say?
He covered it, but.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I agree. I wouldn't have done this.
Okay, maybe I'll just take a quick poll. Rick?
I agree with Dana and Tom.
Tom, okay. Mary?
I'm on board with them.
I'm on board with them, too.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
So this is where the board is at. We would not be comfortable proceeding toward acceptance without the third-party review. I think the board has been over really backwards to try to expedite this as quickly as possible. We still don't want to compromise the quality and integrity of the work that we expect to be done.
Very good. Thank you for your time.
So is it my understanding that the application is going to be tabled at this point?
Yes.
I assume we need a motion for that?
If we table it, we would have a date to table it to.
When do we expect to have a consultant selected and on board? Last possible date at this time.
Well, the schedule that's laid out has the acceptance hearing on January 30th.
So the first,
No, January 30th is when we make the.
I understand that, but if we're going to table the acceptance, we need the date of the planning board meeting at which we would be accepting.
January 30th.
January 30th. There will be a special meeting.
We're having a special
Okay.
meeting
All right.
on January 30th to accept the application.
And that's making a big
under his
assumption,
timeline.
though.
It is making a big assumption, but if we're making the motion, I think that's the date we need to put in
Well,
there.
so let's understand what happens.
This is a very aggressive plan that we have, and we all hope that it works, but I think we have to also understand that things might not go as we plan, but we plan on moving as quickly as we can. And I think as, you know, both parties, both the town and the applicant have indicated, we'd rather make sure that we don't make any mistakes on this.
So let me ask a question on the date, just for clarification. If we say January 30th in our motion, right, and January 15th, we understand we can't meet January 30th, what does that do to us?
I think at the 30th, we could, you know, put it on the table, and if it needs to be tabled again, table it again at that time.
But
I think
in
we
the,
That's
can
part
do
of
it
the
without a
formal way.
3-hour
Okay, now,
conversation.
just a thought. Would it be at least, let's say, worst case, we don't have anybody selected come January 30th. I think, to be fair to the applicant, our staff should begin to review this, so we at least have something to go by.
Yeah, certainly, staff has the background and experience to at least start something, but I think right now we should focus on getting the third party in place.
yeah.
I think the agreement is that we want that third party no matter what.
I understand that, but that's still, I mean, our staff is gonna review it also.
Yes,
But
and I
the
would
thing
like
is,
staff to review as
we've
well.
made a
but-
request that the third party review it.
I understand that.
Yeah, this is a public hearing, so it just deals with application acceptance only, so. Sean, name and address, please.
Sean O'Keefe, 163 Mammoth Road. It would be my suggestion, as a resident, that the board consider seriously of having Bart or a member of town council here for your meetings while you're going through this process.
Hello? This is a member of our town council. His name is Tom Frieda.
I'm talking lawyer, not town council.
Town attorney.
Town attorney,
Okay.
okay? So please don't bite my head off. The town council is the town council. This is above us. We need lawyer here, paid for, representing us, so that any questions that you have can be addressed. Period. That's
Bart
all I'm
indicated he
saying.
had a previous engagement tonight, but.
This is, and Mary, you know and I know that this is above us.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I assumed you meant town council.
I'm sorry, but that's not what I meant.
Okay.
I meant Bart or a member of the staff that's up there. I would encourage that the board seeks that advice to be here at your, at your beck and call, so that you guys can ask questions procedurally or whatever. You'll feel a lot more comfortable, I'm sure of it. I know I would if I was sitting up there. Thank you.
Okay, Tom.
And Attorney Pollack, you'll speak to Attorney Mayor, and if you can expedite things between the two of you, because if Attorney Mayor feels comfortable with some sort of interim proposal beforehand, I wouldn't be adverse to even having a public have a special meeting if they needed action for us to do it.
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you're suggesting.
Well, what I'm suggesting is he's represented that he's had a conversation with Attorney Mayor about an alternate way of handling this. And what I'm suggesting is that if they come to some terms as the town's attorney, that be brought before, if in order to accomplish that, they need a meeting between now and, I guess, the end of the year, maybe we could accommodate them.
Okay, but we're relevant here, right? It's not just between the two lawyers.
Well,
A lot of communication that's going on between the two lawyers.
They would have to come
Of
before the
this.
planning board, for the planning board to make the decision.
Right.
No
but-
matter what.
Okay, I just want to make sure that the last couple hours weren't rendered completely
No.
useless. Okay.
Yeah. I can assure you that Attorney Mayor understands that he works for the board, and I certainly was not making any representation that he felt he could take a decision away from any of you. My question earlier was simply, was the board generally of the opinion that we should put time into some sort of, at least a proposal on completeness of the application and extensions of the review clock, or was it just one member's suggestion that the other board members didn't share? I didn't want to put that time and effort in either on my behalf, on my client's behalf, or on the town's attorney's behalf if it was only one person's opinion, which I share as a good one, but I didn't want to make the assumption.
So do we still need a motion for?
Okay, I'm just, any more public input on the completeness acceptance? Jack Falvey, microphone right there, please.
Jack Falvey. There's a considerable amount of citizen interest in this project. So there's another party in the room, and that is the citizens of Londonderry. We appreciate the effort that the planning board does in representing us. But by the same token, these are all public documents, and we have reviewed many, many of these documents so far and shared with other experts what the issues are. So I think there should be a citizen input in writing to the planning board on the application, as well as from the third party that's being hired and as well as town staff. So there's another voice in the room. We're not potted plants, and we would like to have an input other than one question at a time in a public meeting. So we'd like to submit some things in writing for consideration of the planning board.
Certainly, and email them to Andre.
We'll do it. Thank you.
We'll get things taken care of there.
Art,
Yes.
would it be out of line to request that if there's citizen input submitted to Andre, that it be attributed to specific citizens and not sort of a conglomeration?
Right.
I'm very interested in hearing what people have to say, but.
Yes, it'd have to be sent specific questions with a person's name, address, and everything.
These will all be submitted by me, and I will sign them.
Okay, so it'll be from Citizen Jack. Mike.
Mike Speltz, 18 Sugar Plum Lane. I think I would urge the board not to accept the application until it has a professional review. We have a capable staff. We have a design review committee that actually took a preliminary look at this. And as Jack pointed out, we've gotten a lot of citizen input. So it isn't that there hasn't been review of this document. It's that we, I think, all agree, we don't feel that it has been a completely competent review. Not that any of us are incompetent, but that the scale and the scope of this project is such that it requires a professional review. So I would be reluctant to see you, come up with a suspension of the time clock that would allow you to accept it based on our, but I think we could agree it might be less than adequate efforts to review this thing.
Right, and that's where we need someone who really, because there's a lot here, someone who can put it all together. Because we can take bits and pieces, but we have to work with one whole thing. Tom?
I think Attorney Pollack, correct me if I'm wrong, but you want to have some assurance that the board is authorizing him to start to speak with Bach regarding hammering out some possible guidelines.
Yes, I think there should be communication there. Andre?
It would be helpful to have some guidance on that issue from the board.
I think he wants a consensus from the board. Is that what we want to have done, or do we not want to have?
I think I'm going to go to Andre first.
Yeah, I mean, and I truly appreciate, that guidance, but obviously the information that staff has shared with you tonight with regard to the timeline and all that, what's consistent with the conversations that I've had with legal counsel and felt that this was consistent with the direction that I believe the board set us on November 2nd. So, if I'm hearing the applicant correctly, that there might be some discussion between our legal counsel and him with regard to I guess a secondary timeline. Right now, the schedule that we laid out, and I think I agree with the chairman's characterization of it. It is an aggressive time frame to get a lot of things done in a relatively short period of time, and I think it can be achievable. But in the interim, are we going to then direct our legal counsel to come out with another timeline with regard to the acceptance of the application? And I think that I think that's why we need our third-party reviewer to make sure that again, all the i's are dotted and t's are crossed, so the board is informed with regard to what it's going to be reviewing from their point after.
I think we have to get into it and maybe as close to the third-party reviewer before we can make any adjustments, so to speak.
If, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what you're looking for is whether you should bother to talk with, continue your discussions that you've had with Attorney Mayor.
Yeah, you've got it right. I'm looking for some guidance as to whether or not the board would like us to have those discussions. Should we put that effort in?
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
No.
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 I'm saying wait until
This is why I
the
ask.
consultant is hired.
Yeah, we have,
Okay.
I
I'll listen
don't
to the
want,
board.
no, to Andre's point, we just laid out a time frame
Yeah.
that we're comfortable with and we achieve consensus on, and
We're
frankly,
flip-flopping.
I don't want to hear an interjection
If I'm
from
understanding
a side
the
conversation.
discussions were discussions about extending the clock after we had accepted the application, assuming we accepted it tonight.
Well,
And-
also, whether or not we accept it before we have the consultant on board, and that would include an additional time period beyond the 65-day clock. We, as a board, have agreed that we do not want to see the application to accept it until we have the consultant on board.
Right.
So
Right.
it would not behoove you to have a conversation with our attorney, because even if you two agree, the board has indicated tonight
Right.
that we want to wait until we have that third-party consultant on board before we...
But the board has done that without any legal opinion of its own.
I disagree with you.
Well, okay, that's fine.
We
Show
had
me
a
where you
non-public
had a
meeting
legal
last
opinion that, okay. I guess you got your answer.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Had that motion to table been acted upon?
Not
No,
yet.
not yet.
Hasn't even been,
Yet.
motion to table till January 30th.
Table to January 30th,
Second.
2012. Second by Laura. Any discussion by the board? I think we've had enough. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, chair votes affirmative. And the scheduled public hearing for application acceptance will be on January 30th, 2012, 7 p.m.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Okay, next item we have on the agenda
Is it,
of the business.
Art, is it okay to ask a question on process going forward? Before we
what?
move on, I just,
Yeah.
For what, Lynn?
I'll talk to you later.
Oh,
It's just- I just,
but to talk with Andre. Yeah, what, why don't we bring it up?
Yeah.
now?
Yeah, we'll do it now.
Before everybody leaves, I don't know if anybody wants to hear or if anybody cares, but I have just a couple of questions on process going forward. You should probably, if you'd like to hear.
He's going to ask Andre the questions, but you may want to hear the answers.
About our application?
It's not, I guess it's about the master plan, I've gone through the master plan, I got a copy of it, and I have a lot of comments on it, and we have a lot of public input on it, too. When are we gonna start talking about that stuff? After it's considered approved?
After
After we consider the application approved?
After the application is accepted, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna be another series of meetings and questions and answers and everything else like that, too. And, in points where I don't necessarily agree with their interpretation of the PUD and things like that as well.
Okay.
So,
That would be after application acceptance, and we get into the merit of the application, and that, I think it's appropriate to share those concerns at that point in time.
Yeah, we can only discuss the plan itself after we have accepted it as complete.
okay. Oh, and I agree with that. I just want to make sure that we're all in sync with that as well.
Okay.
So,
Once we have accepted it as complete, then plan discussion's wide open.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
anything else from the board before we proceed? Okay, next item is other business. Patricia Pensioco, trustee, tax map 7, lots 7 through 10. Appeal by PMP Revocable Trust of an impact fee assessment for section 1.2.8.1 of the zoning ordinance. This is continued from November 9th, 2011 planning board meeting. And we are here tonight to continue the public hearing and to discuss the details with the lots that are mentioned. And the conversation will focus just on those lots alone. We've had discussion that was probably quite wide-ranging. That is things that have been brought up are being discussed with staff. That's ongoing. Any changes or anything, the board will come before the board. We'll make those changes as appropriate. But tonight is just those lots in particular and the details of your problems with the impact fees.
Okay. For the record, my name is Patricia Panciaco. I'm the applicant in this particular matter, and this hearing is a continuation of the November 9th public hearing on this matter. At that meeting, I spent most of the time before the board, without belaboring it, going through the impact fee statute with the board, talking about the specific requirements to be satisfied by a valid impact fee ordinance, and also discussing the distinctions between an impact fee and an off-site improvement cost that's assessed on a particular development in relation to its impacts on the environment. As I explained to the board during that meeting, the reason why a master plan and a capital improvement plan is a requirement before an impact fee ordinance is adopted is because the master plan is the wish list. It's the town's vision. The capital improvements plan is the price tag on the items that the citizens would like to see within the municipality. Adding to that is the 6-year time frame within which the town has to act on a capital improvement proposal for which fees may have been collected. To summarize briefly, an impact fee must relate to a capital facility owned or operated by the town, be a proportional share of the municipal improvement cost reasonably related to the needs created by that particular development and the benefits enjoyed by that development. It may be collected in anticipation of growth, as I believe is the case with your school impact fees. It can also be collected after the fact. Once, for instance, a school is another example here also, it's been built, the money has been funded by a bond, but the new development component has not yet been paid for. A valid impact fee cannot be applied when there is growth management also in place. That's in the statute also.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about is your specific parcels.
That's right.
The concerns that you have with them, so address everything to, the specifics of it. I think we've been through everything else the last time. And I probably allowed wider ranging discussion than I probably should have. We just want to focus on those 4 parcels that you have a problem with the town's impact fee assessment.
I have a problem with every one of the impact fee assessments. And
with your parcels?
Pardon me?
With your parcels?
Yes, I do.
This concerns just those 4 parcels that you have.
Well, there are soon to be 2 parcels.
Okay,
And
I don't know about that.
well, they're supposed to be merged. Lot 7 and Lot 8 are to be merged, and Lot 9 and Lot 10 will be merged, and there will only be 2 lots in that location. That was what we proposed with the zoning board, and that is what we intend to do.
Okay, because right now we shows the 4 parcels.
Right. Well, the merger has not been done yet. I'm working on a plan that incorporates all the details into one plan, so that when the notice of voluntary merger comes before the board, there's a clear illustration which will be recorded to show exactly what we have there, because there's been a great deal of confusion with this particular property because of the discontinuance of Meadow Drive as it goes through that area, which was discontinued in 1928. That Meadow Drive right-of-way will be merged into the lot that's combined 7 and 8 together, into that lot, and become part of that lot.
Okay, Andre?
And to Attorney Patsielko's point, they had submitted a lot merger for those 4 lots to create 2 lots. I believe it was the assessing department that found some flaws within the book and page number, that it didn't relate to the parcels that they are supposed to represent. So they brought that to the attention of Pat, and I believe you're examining to make sure that those sites were correct.
And it was basically a plan that doesn't show up on the registry website, that's on file at the registry, a plan reference. So that's all been cleared up.
So is there, I'm sorry, is there a revised impact fee then, or are the ones that we're looking at the ones that we're considering tonight?
The impact fees are an assessment on these particular 2 lots and the building permits that relate to them.
No, but we're looking at impact fees that go across 4 lots. I understand what you just said, and I heard what you just said, but we're looking at ones that are affecting that entire parcel but divvied up into the 4 lots. So I thought the discussion was, as Art just said, that we were going to go through each of the impact fees.
What we're talking about right here. Those 4 parcels are potential 2 parcels. And it would be the specific impact fees that have been assessed on that. And do you have those numbers? What you have been assessed for impact fees? I guess currently?
They're in the letter.
They're in the letter. Don't they
They're in
get
the
cut in
letter.
half?
Yeah.
Yes, I do. There's $18,354 assessed to each lot.
Each lot?
To each lot?
They're duplex lots. So there's 2 dwelling units to be built in one building on each lot.
And you're talking about 2 lots, but at the point where you're going to actually build the houses, though, right?
There'll be a duplex on each merged lot.
Right, so
Right.
18,000 times 2.
Right.
Okay, and what is the, I guess, the complaint that you have?
My complaint is, as a citizen who's being asked to pay a fee to this town, I should be able to know the basis of that fee, how it's applied, and how that fee number was reached. And I have yet to know that.
This is emailed.
I've asked on September 13th for the annual reports on each impact fee account listed in the finance department, many of which appear in the assessment that has been posed on us September 13th, and I still don't have those. It's been now 3 months since I've asked for those annual audit reports to be submitted to the town council, which talks about what's been collected, how much that is, and to what has been applied. And I still haven't been given that information.
So is that information in the town meeting book?
No.
So you're looking for the calculation, right? Of
Yes,
how the
yeah.
18,000 per.
Right.
Well, it's
we're
broken down. You
we're-
got an email on the
Yeah, I
September
mean,
12th,
it's right here, right in front of
And
me.
you got the breakdown of how that 18,000 is calculated?
I got the amount due. I do not have the calculations. I have all the reports done by Mr. Mayberry.
I think what you need to show us, if these fees are excessive, you need to show why you think they are excessive.
I was about to go through that. I don't necessarily think they're excessive per se. I cannot make a determination like that at this point because I do not have a clear analysis of those impact fees from the town. I've
So
asked.
you don't have the details for us to
No.
really arrive at an assessment of what the problem is.
That's correct, and I think some of them are void on their face, they're unauthorized. Others, the analysis was flawed. And in other cases, funds have been misapplied in places where they shouldn't been, but that's
How does that apply to your particular situation here?
As to my situation, I don't feel that I should be asked to add to a fund that's being mismanaged by the town. I think that's illegal.
Okay. Did you get this email that was sent by Libby?
Yes. I
That
asked-
told you that $12,000 is going to the school,
Yes.
$240 is going to the library, $2,414 is going to the recreation
Yes.
department?
Yes.
And Are you saying that you don't understand how that $12,000 is applied in the school? Or how that $2,000 is applied in recreation? Or how that $760 is used in the police?
In part, I think some of these fees don't have a basis, and that there's been enough paid into these accounts that the amount due from new growth has been satisfied some time ago, and they're still being collected, and in some cases, increased. The school impact fees were increased after the school construction was complete. How do you raise impact fees for anticipated costs that are done?
Yeah, it still doesn't get to the specifics of the situation. Laura?
Right, well, I'm sorry.
I apologize, because I wasn't here on the 9th. I didn't hear your first meeting's worth, but are these calculations available? I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, what can I expect to pay for something like this, who does this math?
Oh, no, we have an impact fee scheduled as approved by town council that we give to. We apply to every development in town that the board, that the town has authorized impact fees for.
Is it based on square footage and type of dwelling and that kind of thing?
What we did is, I guess, starting in 1994 and throughout to present, is that we hired a consultant that helped us put together an impact fee calculation using this methodology, and those methodologies are updated for the particular area the board sees fit to update. The last update, I believe, was done in 2006 for the school, 2007 for, I believe, fire, and for police, and therefore, and it was based on the best information that our consultant had at the time, and the methodology, I believe, that Bruce Mayberry employed were sound, and it was found to be sound.
Is that something that's available for review?
Yeah, and I believe Attorney Pansiaco has all of them.
So you could reproduce numbers like this on a similar dwelling because you have the numbers that he figured out, that he used to figure out your numbers?
I'm sorry.
It sounded like Andre just said that you were provided with the methodology that they used to reach these numbers.
Yes.
But isn't that what you said you didn't receive since September?
No. Your ordinance calls for annual audit reports to be submitted to the town council. It states clearly how much was collected, where it was spent.
But wait a minute, but just back up 1 second, okay? I understand you have a problem with how the money is being spent. But do you understand how they came to what you're being assessed?
In some cases, yes.
Okay,
And I
so they did
disagree
provide,
with it.
I maybe misunderstood when you were speaking earlier. I thought you said that you hadn't been provided with that. So these are the numbers that you've been assessed, and you know how they got to them, and they're based on a schedule and a consultant that we use. I'm just trying to understand, is there something, I understand the part about you don't like the way the money is being spent and you think perhaps it's being spent or mismanaged. But as far as what you've been assessed, I think all we can look at right now is have you been assessed wrongly, because you're here to appeal your assessment. And I don't know that we have it's not our purview necessarily to decide whether the town is spending the money that it collects properly. I'm not sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that our purpose tonight is to decide on your appeal, which is this is what you've been assessed and you're claiming that you were assessed wrongly because some calculation was wrong.
It's not that simple. Now, let me ask the board, do you have the letter I sent out on the 18th of November to Mr. Guerin and Mr. Karen?
No.
It was a
No,
7-page
dated
letter.
October 7th.
If I could approach.
There's no letter on the 18th.
On the 18th. He told me I would hear from town council. It says it right in the email. I submitted my letter with specifics, and he reminded me that I owe you an analysis, and without complete information from the town, I am unable to provide you a complete analysis.
Pat, you said the 18th. I have one on the 22nd.
The 22nd is my letter, and you received it also.
Emails November 18.
I got that from Mr. Karen on the 18th. And I responded on the 22nd with a 7-page letter about how I feel your ordinances are flawed. And if you'd like, I can summarize them.
We're discussing that. We're discussing the specific fees you've been charged on your property.
And I'm saying that without a clear basis in fact for you to assess those fees on me, I can't respond to you as to why they're wrong. because I do believe, and I have some additional information here to share with you, that enough fees have been collected, particularly in the school's case,
We're
where...
not here to discuss what fees have been collected. We're here to discuss the fees that you've been assessed on your property and why you feel they are wrong. The schedule is there for every property in town. We do update that periodically based on new information. That whether, it doesn't matter whether the construction's been done or anything else, those fees are assessed to every new property in town, regardless.
I understand that.
So please stick to the facts. We're not interested in what monies have been spent. We're not interested in anything else other than why you feel the fees assessed to you are wrong on these particular properties. We've already gone over of how they're assessed and how they're calculated.
I will tell you and go through each one and tell you specifically why I don't think they're correct and why they should not be assessed.
No, but understanding that, but that frankly is your version of what you think is right and wrong. There's been no determination by any authority.
No, there has not.
Well, isn't that your obligation to to go to court and say these impact fees are wrongly charged, have the impact fee struck down, and then you can seek, not to have it imposed on you?
Is that what the board would prefer, rather than trying to resolve it through the administrative
But
process?
you're asking for an appellate process, and the appellate process requires you to say that this fee is being illegally assessed against you. You haven't made the prerequisite determination that the impact fee is illegal as assessed.
I can allege, but I can't give you all the facts because the town has not given them to me. So I will tell you what I think, but I cannot provide you the evidence because the town has not satisfied my request.
Did you make a 91A request?
You bet your life I did.
Okay, and did you make it to which office in the town?
The planner and the town manager.
Okay.
And I've followed up on a number of occasions in addition to coming to this board.
But you'd agree with me, there's been no determination yet that
No.
the impact fee, as you say, is incorrect.
How can you make a determination without the facts?
I'm not. You're the one that's saying it's wrong. So no authority has said that it's illegal.
No, I have no authority. I would rather resolve it with the board and hope that the board would say, provide the information so that we can talk about specific facts.
But we have no authority to award you essentially an abatement of an impact fee based on a conversation between us when, there's nothing that's been determined that says that the impact fee as assessed or as should be assessed is illegal or is incorrect.
This board is responsible for that impact fees ordinance and for its valid application against new development.
And there's nothing before us that says it's incorrect except you.
And we're applying that currently, and we are hearing and listening to your appeal on those numbers that are specifically related to these property, tax maps.
So we know that when a duplex is built, the assessment is $12,000 because it will have an impact on the school because it will bring children into the school.
Right.
And there are bonds that are being paid on the buildings, whether they've been built, completely built or not. They're still bonded, we're still paying for them. So that's where that goes. The library isn't on, how many times have we fixed that roof? I mean, the library has ongoing things. I think they are all legitimate impact fees. And at this point, Mr. Chair, if you'll entertain a motion, I would like to make a motion that we, the only one I guess I would like to have a conversation about is Route 102 Central Quarter. That's the only one that I could see any argument
to offer
to offer an abatement on. The other ones I think are extremely valid, and I would not, as one board member, be willing to offer an abatement on any of those. But the Route 102 Central Quarter, I would like to have a conversation about.
Andre?
With regard to the impact fees, I think that Attorney Pacheco has made some very good points with their letters to the board and to Dave, Karen, and myself, in which staff has had a number of conversations based on theirs. And we realize, too, that there are some elements of the ordinance that we're going to be revisiting. And there's elements of the ordinance that the town just needs to do a better job of following through with, identified very clearly in the letters that we received. As far as the methodology that we use in order to create this, based on the section 1.2.6, again, we've hired competent consultants to help us with this. We've had competent legal counsel guide us through to make sure that what we move forward with is sound and it meets the intent of RSA 674-21, the impact fee ordinance. We've had conversations with our legal counsel with regard to the way we assess impact fees on our corridors, Route 28 corridor and Route 102 corridor. And I believe the board has already taken steps on a section of the corridor, on the Route 28 corridor, to identify sections that would probably be best not include in our regulations. And we're going to look at every other corridor that we have studied in the community to make sure that what we have from this point going forward is consistent with what our legal counsel is recommending to us that we look at. And but as far as the school impact fee, the fire impact fee, the recreation impact fee, the library impact fee, again, we've hired our experts. We have a computation that we've been using and have updated over time, and we find right now that system and the methodology is sound.
So, Mr. Chair, if you'll entertain a motion, I'd like to make a motion that we make an abatement to the Route 102 Central Quarter Traffic Impact Fee for this application.
Probably the best way would, I think, would be to continue for staff to make the adjustment and everything.
Yeah.
And we come back on the 11th of January.
Yeah, but before we do that, too, didn't we have legal counsel, didn't Bart Myers say that, the way the corridor impact fees are assessed today is legal? I thought that's what he said in his letter that we
Did say
got.
that they are.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I come here with a lot of information for this board, and I would respectfully request that I be allowed to submit this.
It has to be specific to the numbers that you have on your parcels. I'm not, we've gone through everything else before. We don't need to go through it again.
I will give you the two bills killed by the legislature right here.
And it's nothing to do with
To show that
To your property.
102, you can't assess it against me.
Okay.
You don't have the authority to assess impact fees on a state road, period.
That's
We're
what
not gonna have
what
a-
we're talking about
Right.
right here, to making adjustments. We've made adjustments in the
Two
past.
bills killed by the legislature that said that municipalities couldn't do it, and here's a report.
Did you say killed by the legislature?
They were inexpedient to legislate.
So they weren't passed?
Exactly.
So what you're saying is you're going to submit two bills that were
They're right
proposed and
here, a copy
didn't...
for anybody who
Right,
would-
but they weren't enacted.
They were not enacted because they did not feel it was appropriate to give municipalities the authority to assess impact fees on state roads.
But are you saying they didn't enact something that would have prevented the town from doing it, or...
The very fact that somebody proposed that the impact fee statute be amended to grant that type of authority, and the legislature in the state of New Hampshire said no, means that you cannot do it.
No, I'm not sure, I mean...
Well, I have people here that'll testify and were present at all those hearings.
Okay.
Okay, so,
And I think that's a valid point, and it definitely has a direct bearing on the fees being assessed against us. I also would like the fees that have been assessed against our company in the past for road impact fees to be returned because they're illegal.
Mr. Chairman, what are our options? Deny, approve, deny with a condition, or
I would
approve with a
continue it.
condition?
One is to go through, have staff go through these fees, make adjustments, and then I think review by our, town attorney.
I'd like to
We'll come back
submit the information that I've received from the school district that pretty much shows that $3.5 million have been collected, and based on the building aid, which is not reflected in the analysis of these fee assessments, they've collected more than enough to fund the new development cost of school impact fees. This information's here. I have all the data here also that shows you have a declining school population. You've had that for 7 or 8 years right now. But yet, in 2007, your school impact fees went up, and there are no school projects planned. I would like that also
We will
admitted
review that.
and have that assessed by staff, and we can continue if that's the board's pleasure.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion, then I'll make the motion that we continue this to the, would you say, January 11th meeting?
7 p.m.
And I'll send my remaining questions to staff in a letter form, if the board doesn't want to hear them.
Is that January 11th date for a decision on this appeal, that will be coming back with a decision on the appeal, or is that for further discussion on this?
It'll be, I think, from what has been presented here, staff will make the assessment and then be reviewed by council, and I think.
We will review the Route 102 corridor impact fee assessment.
The board will be probably at the point of making a decision then.
Okay.
And I would, again, like to renew my request for an accounting of each impact fee account, as your ordinance says is required to be
Yes.
submitted to town council.
Yeah.
And I can take that up with town council also,
Yes.
because I'm not sure who's responsible for that.
Well, we do have a town council liaison, so you could take that back to your town. to the
And
town
I've spoke
council.
with the finance department, and she does not have them.
Well,
Big chunks of money are transferred to the general fund, which the statute says is not allowed, because the money isn't yours until the legislative body appropriates their share of the improvement. But yet those funds have been dipped into and used for various costs with no corresponding contribution by the town. These are the types of things I'm talking about that make the handling of these funds downright illegal.
Okay, anyone from the public have any questions, comments, concerns on this appeal?
Can I ask for a clarification from the applicant?
Yes.
What specific parcels are you appealing, and what amounts of the tax are you appealing?
An administrative appeal isn't necessarily related to the land, which is more, it's a little bit of a novelty when it's before a planning board.
Okay.
I am appealing the ordinance itself in its application to our proposed building permits.
Oh, okay, so you're not appealing a specific property's tax impact fee?
yes, she is.
Only the
Yes,
assess-
she is.
It's an
No,
administrative
no, but
decision.
as a preliminary matter, you're saying the entire impact fee shouldn't be assessed because it's illegal. You're challenging the ordinance.
The town has the burden to show that the fees being assessed are legal and they're valid. And I'm open to hearing that conversation. But today, I have still not gotten the reports that are supposed to be made available
No,
to me.
I heard what you said. My
Huh?
question is, are you telling us that you're appealing you said it's an administrative appeal?
Yes.
Of a certain section of the zoning ordinance or the impact fee calculation? You're not appealing a specific assessment against you?
Yeah, impact fee assessment per section 1.2.8.1 of the zoning ordinance.
Where is that? No, I'm asking her what she's appealing, not what the statute says.
I'm appealing the imposition of an impact fee generally until I have clarification from the town what I'm paying for and that the amount is validly assessed.
So you're challenging the regulation or the statute, or the ordinance, I guess
No,
it
it's
is.
basically the application, but I want to know what I'm paying for and where it's being applied and that it's valid. And I think that anybody who pays a tax, which is what this is entitled to know that, especially when your ordinance publishes right in the ordinance that an annual audit is done. Had those audits been done, we may not be having this conversation.
But if you're challenging an enacted ordinance, Don't you have an obligation to go to the Superior Court that has equity power to do that, since we don't have that?
Your ordinance requires that I exhaust my administrative remedies. And if you would like me to go to the Superior Court, I can do that, and the court will order the town to produce that. I'm trying to make this less painful for the town. And I've got little cooperation for the specific information that I've asked for, other than reports published by others. Financial reports that are supposed to be open and available to me as a taxpayer aren't available, and that's a violation of 91A. That's a serious thing for a town.
Then with all due respect, I think you need to specify that you're challenging what you're challenging, which section that you're challenging, and put it in writing so you've got a record to take to the Superior Court.
I can do that. You can't challenge specificity when the specificity is not provided by the town. I can challenge them as applied and put the town's feet to the fire in the courtroom if that's easier.
I beg to differ with you. I just don't think that it's the town's obligation that when anybody says, I think the law is wrong, that it's the town's obligation to say that. It's been enacted, it's been passed. I think you'd find that the record says that. You want to say it's wrong, you're welcome to that, but that's not our purview to say that.
The statute is valid. The ordinance is actually very well written. I will say that. And with the exception of one provision that allows impact fees to be applied to pay bond interest, I think it's consistent generally with the statute. The problem is it hasn't been applied the way it's written.
Said, with all due respect, that's what you say, okay? And you come back with, you have to believe me because the town hasn't given me the financial records to prove me wrong.
That speaks for itself.
It speaks that, like lots of things in the government, you don't get anything sometimes until you make a lot of noise, and you should get the documents. But that doesn't mean anything other than you didn't get the documents. With all due respect, you're taking 3 leaps here because somebody didn't provide you with something.
It's 90 days since I've asked for it.
And it may be, and that's wrong, and you should get the documents, but that doesn't mean that they've been illegally collected, illegally applied, or that anything you say has any relevance or validity to it.
Based upon the reports from outsiders and the limited information I've been given, that's the way it looks. It really would be very helpful if this board would be supportive in producing what your ordinance says you have available, but I've yet to hear that.
Certainly, we've made that request to staff, and that's where, staff does the administration of our ordinance.
And I can't speak to the financial information, but I just know that every document that Ms. Pansiaco has asked from my office, we produced.
Published by other people.
I'm just saying, the documents that we have identified in our ordinance and the methodology used in order to arrive at the impact fees that we have for fire, police, highway, or should I say fire, police, highway, and recreation, all have been produced and given to Ms. Pansiaco as requested.
Right. And I've been given one-sided reports by the finance department, and I was told to go to planning or public works to find out where the money went when there was a lump sum transferred to the general fund. When I asked, where did that money go? Where was that applied? I don't know. I don't have the information.
Well, I attend the school budget meetings, and I listen to, I don't attend, the town council meetings during the budget season. And I also listen to the town council, and I attend the school board when the outside auditors come in and audit our books. So those documents are there. The books are audited every single year. By law, they have to be.
Generally, yes, they are.
Well,
I agree, but not the impact fees.
But the impact fee is a revenue, and the revenue is accounted for in the audit. These people specifically speak about the revenues versus the expenditures. And both budgets are bottom line budgets, so the impact fees, unless they go into, actually though I don't really want to get into this conversation with you, but I'm just saying, I know that we are audited every single year, And I know that you should be able to get that information from Sue Hickey,
I
from the
would think
town, and from the school.
I would think
You
so.
said the school has provided information for you.
Yeah, he's given me 2 summary letters, and I sent him a couple of other questions, and he also told me that $200,000 from the school impact fees was used to keep the town's tax rate in check. Is that what impact fees are for? The letter is right
It's a
here.
bottom line budget, so.
That's not what impact fees are collected for, and it's not recognized revenue until the town appropriates their share.
Well, again,
So, I
this
mean,
is
it
not the
gets
conversation
circular.
we need to have this evening.
Mr. Chairman, what are our options?
We're not here to argue, we just
Right.
collect as much information as we can. I think our option is to take it under advisement, have
Well,
staff.
there's a motion on the floor to table it to the 11th.
Fine.
To continue it to the 11th.
Continue to the 11th, yeah.
Did anybody
Have some
second that?
discussion on that?
I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I can withdraw my second if there's something that needs to be discussed.
I don't understand the point, why we would delay it to January. We've asked the questions of Ms. Panciaco 2 times now, and frankly, she has yet to give us an answer specifically. She's given us lots of other answers, which I can sincerely appreciate, that she has issues with. But we've asked her twice now, specifically about her appeal with regard to these numbers, and I have yet to hear an answer from you on these numbers as they're outlined
I have
on the
information.
fees. Excuse me, just let me finish. And I don't see the point, frankly, in delaying this for either party involved. I mean, she came to us in good faith to talk about those impact fees, and we want to talk about it, but I don't hear her talking about it with us. So I don't see why pushing it another month is going to help us, or her, for that matter.
I just want staff to review, and I think we're dealing with the 102.
Yeah.
fees.
Mr. Chairman, my question, Andre, is when will you come to an opinion on those fees, the structure of that changing? When do you think the time frame will be that you might come to conclusion of restructuring the fees that have to do with the state roads or 102?
That we want to get on right away. Within the next month, I want to have at least an outline of what I want to present to the board. Because there's a lot of information that's been shared and a lot of information that we garnered from our legal counsel, and therefore, again, we want to take a look at all of our, especially the traffic impact fees, starting with that.
So you might have an answer for us in a month on it, or?
With regard to this particular one, again, if it's the direction of the board to come back with looking at how the Route 102 corridor impact fee could be modified based on the input that we received from legal counsel, I'll have that by January 11th.
You will have that,
Yes,
okay,
I will.
because then we'll have something to discuss that has to do with possibly that aspect of that one particular impact fee.
Correct.
And if you could look at one other thing, too, if we do make changes to that, if those changes can be applied retroactively or not, because I know Ms. Panciocco had talked about looking for rebates on all of her prior impact fees. So I think we need to understand that as well.
Absolutely.
That's something,
I would like these other questions.
have we ever done stuff retroactively? Then why would we start now?
That'll be the next question.
You know, I mean, this property was appraised, the impact fees were assessed on our current methodology.
Right.
All right, yes, I understand we're gonna look at changing our calculations. That's something we should do on a routine basis. And change the calculations based on that new information going forward. But I don't think it should be applied retroactively.
Right.
So I don't know why we're even, I agree with Letha, but why are we even considering continuing this?
Because we don't have complete information.
I do.
I do.
Yeah, I think we do.
Well,
Okay, well, I had a motion on the floor, and you kind of asked me to take that one back because you wanted more information. So do we want to pull the board as opposed to?
Someone can make a motion, and we'll poll the board that way.
Okay, We have two options. I can withdraw we can vote down continuing it, and then I'll make the other motion.
Can I have the motion on the floor and a second for continuance? That could be withdrawn, or we could go ahead and vote whatever way the board wants. And the motion would be,
I'd rather have a vote, personally.
Yeah, do a vote.
oh, okay. Okay.
So-
Vote on the motion on the floor?
So Mary's motion that's on the floor is to continue to the 11th of January, 2012, 7 PM, as we'll have what little information we have here, we can make adjustments, the staff will make that adjustment, and it'll be reviewed by
No,
legal.
the motion on the board is to continue it to the 11th, yeah.
Yeah, okay. A second by Laura.
Is he
I
going to
have-
discussion on that?
Yes, we'll have discussion on that.
I have one more question.
It'll be part of this discussion.
Yeah, one more question about, when, naturally, this development, the merger hasn't happened yet, it's going to happen in the near future. When do impact fees get collected? At what point do impact fees get collected?
At the time of, prior to CO, certificate of occupancy.
Right.
Okay, so at that point, the new methodology that has to do with Route 102 and that you're talking about, that you're going to be putting in place, will be in place at that point, right?
Correct.
Which means the impact fee numbers are going to change in that regard, on that line,
Well, the
right?
impact fee in this regard has been assessed. I mean.
Oh, it's already, this is the
assessed.
assessed number, okay.
It's assessed, yeah.
That's what I wanted to know, okay.
Yeah, you need a part for a permit.
Okay. Thank you.
Tom?
All right, so.
I gotta say, I don't even know
when they
what we're
apply for
doing.
permit, they get the, it's assessed, and then the impact is.
We're talking about, there's been an assessment against you apparently, which you haven't paid. You don't seem to be asking about that. You're saying, I don't like how it's calculated. Okay.
No, I'm asking for more information so I
Well,
can
but
tell you
frankly,
that.
if you filed an appeal, so, either you have
I
the
had
information or you don't. But,
True.
well, you're telling us you don't have the information, then how can you sit there and say, it's wrong, you don't have the information?
Because what I do have and what I have gotten from Andre points in that direction, but I'm asking the town because there may be things that I don't know about. And that's why I've asked for those reports.
But this is where I have a fundamental problem. You're saying it's wrong, and you're telling me I have to prove that I'm right. I don't agree with that. I think you say it's wrong, you're saying
We'll
it's,
go.
I guess,
We'll test it.
unconstitutional, illegal, whatever. You prove it's wrong. Get your evidence, come before us.
I did.
Well, you don't have it,
Well,
frankly, because you just came here and said, I don't have it.
I've pointed all that out in the letter that I gave you tonight that none of you were given before this hearing. I've pointed out specifics in your town reports, in the reports and the methodologies. I've explained all that, and I've also testified to a number of those facts. That letter is 7 pages long. It's been at this town hall now for almost a month, and you haven't seen it, unfortunately, and that's a disrespect to you as a board, to come and listen to this hearing and not having had a chance to review that letter in detail and what it says, because you did ask me for specificity. And I've pointed out to you in that letter exactly where I see these inconsistencies and why I am alleging what I'm alleging. And why that additional complete information will help me to clarify what I could be completely wrong.
So
And-
you agree you could be completely wrong?
I could be completely wrong, absolutely.
Okay.
But without complete information from the town, how would I know that?
But
It's a
my point is, you're here on your appeal, and with all due respect, if you're going to have a trial, you can't say, if you just give me, I got witnesses out there I got an alibi defense. They're just not here today.
When I go to trial, I ask for a stay till I get complete
Well,
information.
then you know what? Then
which I've done.
Then frankly, do that.
I
okay?
did hear, and I still haven't got the complete information. Now you're in contempt of court.
Well,
if you want
no. I mean, with all due respect, I don't even know from reading your 2 letters what you're complaining about. You've given me a little closer thing here, and then you tell me I don't have the information. So, if you want to ask us, I need a continuance for 30 days so that I can get the town hall to give me the financial information. Then I'm going to come here and I'm going to prove to the board that the impact fees have been illegally collected. Fine, but if you're going to come here and say, I need 30 days so I can get information, and then you'll have to prove it to me that I'm correct, I'm ready to deny you now.
I'm happy to do that, and I did that last month, asking for that
No,
additional
are you going to
information.
take the
I'll do it
burden?
again.
Are you going to take the burden and say you're going to undertake and calculate how it's illegal? And I don't have to prove. We don't have to prove a thing here.
I have.
No,
I
no,
have
no.
assumed that burden.
Okay, so we're all clear on that. You're
I
going to
have
prove
no
it's
problem.
illegal.
With my own analysis, I will not hire a consultant,
Okay.
but I will point out the inconsistencies that I've already pointed out, and I've got more to add to
Well,
that.
I just want to be clear,
I want
because
complete
I'm
information.
happy to give you the chance to do that if
Fine.
you're going to take the burden.
I
If
have
you're-
no problem
If you
with
want a
that.
continuance just for me to come back in a month and prove that,
No.
you know, we're right, I'll deny it now. I'd vote to
Nope.
deny it now.
No, I want the reports that your ordinance says are available annually, what's collected, what it's applied to. And there are things, there are reports that your ordinance says are available and submitted to town council.
Well, that's fine.
If I
So
have those
it's your burden,
reports,
just so we're clear,
It's my burden, I'm fine with that,
then I'd vote to give her a continuance.
to point out where I
But
think.
she's telling us she already gave it to us. So what are you going to
She's
bring
saying-
something new?
She's saying she's going to get something. What she
Okay.
gets is up to her.
All right.
It's not my job.
I have to have the cooperation of the town to have that information. I can't produce it. Once I have it, I will be happy to come back to you and meet that burden and point out to you where I think things have gone awry.
You're an attorney, right?
I absolutely am.
You got a case here. You can go get a subpoena. Drag him down here next time.
I can't issue a subpoena without being in court. And I thought a more simple way also for the town to manage this was at an administrative level without the court costs involved. Now, if the town would prefer otherwise, so be it, but why would I want to do that to the town? I can go to court myself. It's not going to cost me any money, but it makes no sense if it can be resolved with the board who's charged with administering this ordinance.
Well, we're looking for the information, and evidently it's not all here.
I need the information to complete my package, and I will be happy to get back to you with specificity, complete specificity, other than the 7 pages I've already provided. Happy to do that.
And also, I guess I must say that the 7 pages that Ms. Panciaco is referring to, and that's dated November 22nd, and that's what was handed out. It was obviously sent to Dave, Karen, and myself. And with regard to the appeal in accordance with our regulations, there's nothing in there regarding our appeal. It's the information with regard to her proposal on what is wrong with our impact fee ordinance, but with regard to what the board has to react to, and that's clearly in our regulations, there's nothing in there to that effect. Dave and I had conversations. We spoke with our legal counsel, and I believe legal counsel has spoken with the board, and therefore we're taking action on those items in here that we think are relevant towards improving our impact fee ordinance. But with regard to what's at stake, we have 4 lots here with an impact fee, or 2 lots, once it's merged, that the impact fee was assessed, and therefore the board has to react to, is that impact fee calculated incorrectly? And here is my proposal, and what I think is the correct proposal, and then the board can react to that.
No,
That's what's in our regulations right now.
But as I've just said, I can't provide that, Mr. Garin, without complete information to reach that conclusion and propose it to the town.
So
Once I have that, I'm happy to come in with what I feel is reasonable or fair, so the board can consider that to meet the letter of what your language says.
But
I need
wait, I'm sorry, you told me earlier, this is my main point of confusion at the very beginning of this discussion. You said you didn't receive the information about how these fees were calculated, and then Andre
No.
said that he did provide you with the information about how these fees were calculated by the outside consultant with their methodology. And you said, yes, I received that, and I said, I must have misunderstood you when you said you didn't.
No, I want the accounting of it.
But
Many
stop.
of these.
But you said you
that
got
makes
the
a
information
difference.
about how to calculate these fees.
No, It's not, I have the reports, I do not have the audit that is supposed to be available to
sorry,
reconcile
maybe it's just because I'm late, and I'm not an attorney.
No, and
Do
I'm
you
not going
have
to keep you
the-
late.
Do you know how the people arrived at $12,060 for a condex duplex, 3-bedroom unit, school impact fee? Did they provide you with something that showed, based on your lots, this is how we arrived at $12,060?
Yes.
And did you see any mistakes in the math, or any mistakes in how they got to that number?
How they got to the 12,000, I didn't see any addition errors, if that's the
Okay,
question.
thank
The
you.
foundational piece, I do have an issue with.
I feel like I'm being asked to decide a bunch of stuff that I'm not qualified to decide and that isn't our purview. And I sympathize with you. If you're running into problems getting information from the town, you certainly should get the information that you request.
That's all
But as
I'm
far as our
asking.
job here tonight, I'm unwilling to second a motion to continue this till next week, because I have not been given a speck of information that says that the impact fees that were calculated on these properties were in any way erroneously arrived at, and that's what I've been asked to decide on tonight. If they were erroneously arrived at, let's uphold her appeal. But I've got no information, so I'm not willing to continue this. I'm
Okay,
not
then
gonna
I'll
second it.
withdraw that, and I will make a motion that we deny the appeal. Thank you.
Motion by Mary, second by Dana to deny the appeal. Any further discussion by the board? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Abstentions, chair is affirmative, and
Nays.
appeal is denied.
Okay.
Okay, next item,
Two
we-
nays, right?
pardon?
I think there were 2 nays.
Oh, okay, pardon me.
Me.
Okay, two nays. Okay, next item we have is Orchard Christian Fellowship, tax map 6, lot 18-2. This is a conceptual discussion of a site plan for a proposed church with associated site improvements. 136 Spilsbury Road, and it's zoned AR1. And this is a conceptual discussion, there's nothing, no decisions are made or anything, but it's just a exchange of ideas between the,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion.
Okay, Maria, and let the record show, Libby, let the record show Maria has stepped down from this discussion.
Cynthia, I'm not sure if there's a problem with the file types, but the 2 picture files that we've had tonight, I'm unable to open them up.
Yeah, I can't open them either.
They're saved as PowerPoint files, they're not saved as PDF files, so.
Must be the site plans.
Oh, the pictometry one?
I can't explain it.
PowerPoints.
I'm sorry.
Can you go to a different view?
I have the same files here, and I'm able to open them up.
Try right-clicking on it.
Yeah, right.
Clicking and doing what?
No, I did, it don't work.
It won't
No,
work for
that's-
me.
That happened earlier too, so
No, it's
can you
the
get
2
out of there?
maps.
Oh, okay.
Get X out,
X out of this?
yeah. Go to planning board, where's the planning board?
Nope.
Yeah, the wood mount maps and stuff like that. No.
See, I've got bigger
PowerPoints.
problems, maybe there.
Right, restore your active,
Oh, it's probably not
There it is.
And you
compatible.
take
now go
down
to the
all the
right.
maps.
this one.
Site plan
Yeah,
record.
they're PPTX files.
I think the engineer's here, he can kind of walk you
Walk
through
us
it.
through, yeah, it should do it for you. Okay, he's all set.
Don't say that.
Yep, you have the floor, just name, address, company, so forth.
Address, sure. My name is Jeff Lewis. I'm from North Point Engineering. I'm here tonight representing the Orchard Christian Fellowship. I have a small entourage from the church behind me who are available to answer some questions you folks may have. You're our last stop in this preliminary process. We've met with staff back a couple months ago, had an occasion to meet with the Heritage Commission last month conceptually, and wanted to come before you folks tonight conceptually before we advance the site plan for the church. I was just going to run through a few bullets, and then obviously we're here to take any feedback, understanding that it's non-binding. I'm going to I basically have the same exhibits that I think you have on the PowerPoint up there. That plan that's on the screen right now is the proposed site plan, or the conceptually proposed site plan. One of the plans we also submitted is an existing conditions exhibit. The property has been surveyed. Assume that everyone is familiar with this property. It's right down the street or on the corner on Pillsbury Road. It's an existing approximately 15-acre parcel. The whole front portion is an active apple orchard crop. The church does own the property now. They do have an agreement with Max to harvest the crop that's on there. The abutting land uses are the Historical Society just to the west down Pillsbury Road, the Londonderry Presbyterian Church and their small campus just to the east on Pillsbury Road. Moose Hill Kindergarten is right back here on this side, and then the Londonderry School District and middle school and high school adjacent to us. So it's a mixture of institutional uses for the most part that surround us. And the proposal is for the church to, they've been working over the past year plus maybe on developing a plan to construct a building for use as a sanctuary on the property. At the same time, trying to evaluate and assess the expansion potential. They do have some plans for future expansions of the church. This will be their first building. It's about a 7,000 square foot, maybe a little over 7,000 square foot building that you see on that preliminary site plan. It would be used as their initial sanctuary, right around 400 seat capacity. The idea is that as they phase in their development over the coming years, as their congregation grows, they would expand the campus, if you will, ultimately end up with a larger sanctuary on the site, some classrooms, some additional uses that are compatible with the part of the church function there. So the exercise that's been going on for the better part of the year has been to try to develop this master plan that will kind of encompass the phase one, what we're calling we're still calling the phase one improvements, but it will be the site plan that's advanced before you.
Very dangerous word, master plan.
Well, yeah, we call it I'm glad I'm here at the end of the anyways, the site itself does have a number of restrictions that have made it difficult to come up with or I should say difficult, challenging, I guess would be a better word, to come up with the best, what we feel is the best layout for the site. The site does have a fair amount of fall, vertical relief across it from I guess east to west, bottom to top as we're looking at the plan. It's about 40 or 50 feet of drop across, with Moose Hill Elementary being at the low end. There's very shallow ledge on that site. The orchard crop is growing on very thin soil that's covering the ledge, 0 to 1 or 2 feet across most of the site. So we're very concerned with the amount of ledge removal that's going to need to occur on that site. There's some site distance issues with the driveway entrance. We need the driveway entrance to be on the lower half of the site because we do have some issues with site visibility, accessing it from the top. And we have a sewer was another design issue. There is no sewer available in Pillsbury Road. The hope for this project, at least at some point, would be that they'd be able to connect to the municipal sewer that exists on the Moose Hill Kindergarten site in the back. You can kind of see it on that plan up there as a kind of hatched area at the top of the plan. We've gone through an exercise with John and engineering to Public Works to analyze the capacity of the sewer main that exists out there that serves the high school and the school district parcels, to make sure that there is capacity available for the build-out of this site, as well as any future additions that may happen at Moose Hill. So I think we've successfully got to that point very recently, so we're comfortable that there is the availability for sewer out there at some point in the phasing of this project. It's obviously a construction cost issue for the church, as is the entire project. They're trying to do an economical design and implementation for this phase with obviously limited funds. So what we come to is we come to this plan that you see before us, and we're trying to show it to you with some relative global picture of what the build-out is. What we have is, this would be the location of the building that's being constructed right now in this phase, with basically a two-tiered parking lot here with a driveway that comes in at the low end. There'll be about 15 or 20 feet of drop between these two levels of the parking lot, really to try to get them to, balance the earthwork and the ledge removal out, with the idea that these future building areas we have shown here would end up being some type of stepped building. So by the time you get up to this future area up at the top, it'd be a whole story higher than the building that's down here. So we're really trying to plan for the future build out of this site. We'd have a future parking area at the top, a future parking area at the bottom, because we'd end up needing much more parking in the future. So we're trying to take in consideration a lot of the existing provisions in the zoning ordinance for setbacks. There is a requirement for buffers adjacent to residential districts, which all of these parcels are, and that's based on the size of the building. So we're trying to preserve a 50-foot perimeter buffer in the build-out condition, which would meet the current zoning requirements. And we end up with a plan that looks like this. We obviously have some area reserved at the bottom of the site for drainage, which will be where all the stormwater wants to go. We have the future sewer line also shown on that plan. It's not shown on this plan, going out to the back. And we have identified, one of the concerns that the church identified early on is what's going to happen with the orchard that's there now. They've been in conversations with Max, and trying to figure out, what is an appropriate way to phase out the orchard. It does have a life expectancy that's running out at this point. Obviously, when we go in with this first development, a large portion of that orchard would need to be removed. They're obviously conscious of that. They have the orchard name right in their name, so they want to preserve what they can. Of that, and what we've come up with for a plan is to keep some of a row of the trees, or the orchard crop out adjacent to the street, with a couple small clusters back closer to the building area, which would really be all that they're able to maintain on their own. I mean, after the building goes in and the big crop field is gone, Max would no longer be maintaining that, and it would be very difficult for the church to maintain it on their own. They need to keep the number of orchard trees down, so that they'd be able to manage them. So that's basically what we've come up with them, and in talking with Max. And Doug Campbell is here to add any further insight into that if the board's interested in that. We did meet with the Heritage Commission. There were a number of issues that came up. I think, for the most part, it was well received. We did explain to them, I think, everything that we've talked about here. There were some minor concerns about our stone walls going to be impacted if the sewer line goes down there. Apparently, there's a old foundation on the Historic Society site. They wanted to make sure that with any blasting or drainage, that's not going to be affected. All things that we would address when we get to the final design. They asked about the sign. They asked if there would be a steeple on the building. I think that for the most part, the building renderings that we have were well received. And then one of the issues that there was some time spent on was talking about the layout of the site. The location of the building, the location of the parking, and that seems to be the one thing we wanted to get some feedback from you on. It is, we did look at many different orientations for this building. We looked at several that had the building up front, several that had the building on the top, and in order for them to build an economical first phase and get something on the site, but be able to maintain the ability to have a build out the way they envision it, this is the layout that they've decided really to move forward with it is the best, suitable, optimal layout for the site. I think that's about it. I know that's probably longer than you would have expected for a conceptual, but.
Okay, we'll go to staff and then go to the board. We'll start with John.
Yeah,
then
again,
Cynthia.
Yeah, Jeff's correct. We did have some discussions, and they've looked at the sewer capacity, and it appears, again, we would have sufficient capacity for them to tie in. Again, at this stage, they need to approach the school district and see if they can get easements and whatnot. And again, one thing that Jeff had mentioned too is about your site distance, Jeff. Again, it's something that we'll have to work on, but you said you got it by shifting it to the west?
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, so we can deal with that, and then the drainage, we'll discuss that further. Other than that, I have nothing.
Okay, Cynthia?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I actually was at the Heritage Commission and did hear the conversations and actually brought up the point myself regarding the positioning of the church, the concern with the fact that this is part of the scenic way for the trees, and its relationship to what's going on at the intersection of Pillsbury and Mammoth Road, where there are 3 other church-type structures closer to the front with, basically a drop-off or something similar to that. And so, and I wasn't here for the early discussions with the applicant, so I have to apologize for that. But, in my mind, it's surprising that there's not a way to bring either the architecture to the street and put the parking on the side and rear and make it work, or like Moose Hill, just push the whole thing back. One of the things in pushing the parking back is that now, from my understanding, at probably the most westerly corner, that's going to be almost 20 feet above the current grade in order to make that work. So approximately 20 feet of fill at that location. And it's going to require structures in the parking lot itself, and that they may see some savings because they wouldn't have to put in that closed drainage system necessarily if everything was back further. So those were just the things that occurred to me.
Okay, thank you. Andre?
It's, I'd like to echo a lot of the concerns that Cynthia had with regard to the site. I was at the initial meeting that we had with that, and that's one of the first things that came out with in our discussion at the meeting with regard to this site, is that this roadway is part of Londonderry Scenic and Cultural Byways, obviously with the Max Apple Orchards right there. We had obtained that designation at a lot of effort and time put in through the town, and a grant actually as well, that the town was able to get that designation. And so obviously we want to make sure we protect that, and we're not singling this particular application out, because we mentioned it with the bigger application that we just heard weeks ago, hours ago. And as well as development that has occurred along a scenic and cultural byway, we've always made a concerted effort to make sure that we can maintain that, that designation. Now, I understand that there are some restrictions with regard to the development of this property, and but I guess I still will emphasize that if it can be pushed back, or the architecture can be brought closer, much like a lot of the other buildings in that close area, I think it ought to be seriously examined, because obviously once it's done, it's done. And if the applicant can take a look at those elements and try to make every effort to try to maintain some semblance of that designation there, I think it ought to be done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, we'll do the board.
All set.
You all set?
All set.
I just would echo about the architecture. I'd rather see, if you just need one row of parking in the front, and then put everything behind it so that we see the building and not the parking lot.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, I want to say that I agree with the parking. When I first saw the site plan, my first thought was, why can't the parking be behind the building and the building beyond the road? I think that would really tie it in with the rest of the area. But are you saying that this corner is the highest elevation, and it goes back like that?
Yes.
Okay, and what is this feature right through this?
Well, there's a, that's really the line right now where the whole back portion of the site is just wooded. It's naturally wooded. There's a wetland down at the low end down here, and that line right there is the tree line, if you will.
Okay.
This orchard basically goes back to that. There's a little trail that comes up the edge of the tree line and heads on back towards the school fields over there. But that's really the dividing line between the front half of the site, that's the orchard, and the back half, which is woods.
Okay. Yeah, the parking's my biggest concern as well.
Sorry.
Laura?
It's such a visible, obviously important part of town, and it is, you'd think you could work out something where it fit there better. I hate to say I don't like a plan, but I think that has the potential to really mess up that corner with that much parking area out in front. So, I'm sorry, I guess that's it.
Yep. Lisa?
Yeah, I actually have a question. Early on, you mentioned, the apple orchard that currently exists, and that you would maintain a certain row of trees if you were to go forth with this plan that you have before us. I don't want to assume incorrectly, so this is why I'm asking. If you didn't put the building up front like we're talking about and put the parking behind, but rather move to the building more set back, like say Moose Hill is, as Cynthia had mentioned before, would you not maintain that orchard that's out there? Would you take that down? Or, I mean,
Yeah, I mean, there's it's tough to, I guess describe to you folks where we've been. I mean, we're obviously very sensitive. The church members are very sensitive to this issue, and we do hear these, all these thoughts. There are the reality of what they're trying to do is bigger than what we're moving forward with in this application. So there will be more parking on the site. There'll be almost, I don't want to say twice as much, but close to twice as much parking on that site with the build-out of what they're trying to do in the future. The building will be 3 to 4 times the size of what they're trying to do right now. So there is this master planning type of effort we're doing. The further back we go into the site, into the existing trees, the faster it starts to drop off towards the wetlands. We do have you can see on that plan without the topography, we have the CO district boundary and the wetlands back there, but it really starts to drop off faster there. So the best buildable area for the site is right about where we have the building and the future buildings identified. So whether the buildings were in the front and the parking was in the back, ultimately the orchard would need to go.
I mean, I'm counting about 140 spaces or so right now, plus future, which would double that.
Mm-hmm. Well, the parking right now that's shown on there is based off the capacity of the building, which would be around 400 seats. And they have plans in the future to have for that particular building to become a multi-use, multi-purpose building and have a larger sanctuary on the order of 800 seats. So that would double the required parking based on, that calculation.
All the more reason to put it in the back.
Yeah, I was going to say, then, thank you for clarifying for me. So, yeah, I would echo the sentiments of the rest of the board then, that my preference is to see a plan that had a building more in line with what's on that corner intersection area of town with the parking in the back.
But the renderings are very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the Heritage Commission liked also, and we did have the discussion, the parking lot in front, parking lot in the back, and I think they're more equally divided. But I think.
Well, I mean, what I hear, it's just, and we do want to, like I say, we have, and feel free to chime in if you want. I don't want to do all the speaking, but I hear about half the people, half of you folks not offering an opinion and half offering an opinion, wanting the building in the front. And I guess what I'm, would express to you today is that the church is ready to move forward with the plan as you see here. I mean, obviously very subjective topic. And I don't know, without any specific criteria as to what needs to be where, what we need to do, it's very hard for us to move forward with, because we know we simply can't move the building to the front and create the product that they would like to create, which is a more traditional church with an entrance to the front, with people entering into the front of the church, with the face of the building facing the street. It's hard to do and accommodate the requests that I'm hearing here. I mean, but we've been there. I mean, we honestly have been there, and we've looked at the different options, the rotations, put the building on the low side, put the building on the high side. The reality is, to work with this site, the building wants to be stepped, so it wants to be oriented the way that it is. And, you know, short of sitting down with you folks and going through all of the steps that we have been through, it's very hard to just describe, you know, with my hands, you know, how we've come to that. So, but I'm just letting you know that's where we're at. Do you want to add anything to that, or?
I'm Doug Campbell. I'm the building committee chair. When we met with the town planning team, we went back to our architect even before we engaged North Point, I believe, officially. And we had several meetings having our architect work with North Point after that to move the building around. But keep in mind, the land is like this. And the architect just kept saying, look, if you want to put it here, you need to tilt your property this way. That means 80 trucks of fill, or you need 50 sessions of blasting to 20-foot ledge drops. So anytime we want to move things around, it's very difficult. And we simply, we're a small church. One of our goals was aesthetics in our congregation entering the church from the front. We're not going to be interested in having a church where our congregation has to enter from the back, and keeping the site where costs down. We simply don't have a budget to truck in 40 loads of fill, or to have a crew come in and blast down 20 feet of ledge and sink the whole property to put a parking lot in the back. And plus, I don't think you wouldn't like that either, because you're going to be looking at a 20-foot high wall of ledge instead of a parking lot if we were to do that. So we did spend several meetings trying to figure out a different layout that kept the concept of a campus where we had flow from the multipurpose through our classrooms to a sanctuary. We did get some comments at the Heritage Commissions about splitting the buildings up into separate sites on the campus. And again, with the profile of our church, we don't think that's a good idea to have people walking outside to go have a cup of coffee after church or take the kids to school. We want to have our congregants be able to walk from building to building in a contained, continuous campus concept.
And behind those three buildings, the proposed buildings, what's behind that? I mean, I know it's woods right now, but that can't be where your parking lot goes?
It's just not. It just drops off much faster.
It goes like this.
Yeah.
Instead of going like this towards Moose Hill School, it goes like this down to the swamp. So again, if we were to push the concept of the campus back further, I'm not the engineer, but again, we're talking about significant amount of fill to make that buildable.
You know Bob Lincoln? Never mind, it's bad. Okay.
I think the situation is pretty much dictated by the property, the land, and I know
Our
we went through the
architect has said it's a challenging site. Our engineer is telling us it's a challenging site, but it's the site that we have.
Yeah, I mean, would the board be acceptable with the layout presented? Because I think it's the difficulty they have in trying to, moving the buildings up front and the parking behind is going to be much more difficult to achieve, and I think there's a cost factor also. I think as long as the parking, there's trees and, the aesthetics are maintained there, I think it gives some of the setting, or at least a little bit of buffer at the front along the walkway with some trees.
Very serious conversations amongst ourselves, and met with Moose Hill Orchard twice. I was the apple tree guy when we started this project, and the more we got into it, and after talking to Andy Sr. and his production manager, those number of trees that you see there is our attempt to keep in the spirit of the cultural byway with the number of trees that we think we can maintain ourselves.
He won't. He's not willing to have any kind of an agreement with you to maintain them and use them.
The conversation I had with Mike Cross, his production manager, Andy just said, work it out with Mike, you know Andy, right? Mike was saying it only makes sense for him and his crews if there were a continuous number of rows of trees. The equipment that they use to trim, to clean, to spray, to maintain, to take the crop off the trees, it didn't make any sense to him if it weren't a number of contiguous rows of trees to continue to maintain them. It wouldn't be in their economic interest to continue to do that.
Andre?
So a question I have is, when you look at the area view, there's rows of trees in the front. So if I hear you right, if you said that if you were to maintain those trees in the front in rows, then he would maintain those. If you would maintain rows of trees, then he would maintain them. If those rows of trees were to be gone, then obviously they will not.
Correct.
So, and right now, there's, I don't know how many rows of trees where that parking lot is right now. You know offhand?
I think we have a diagram of that. In any case, when we talk about shifting the buildings from the front to the back to the side of the parking, in any one of those configurations, there weren't enough contiguous rows of trees left for them to be interested in maintaining them.
So you said that there's another phase for the parking. What if you were to forget like that upper section of parking and put in that second phase of parking to compensate for it and leave those trees? And then put your additional parking, where were you going to?
We've been there.
You know?
Well, I mean,
Unfortunately, on the upper, I guess is at the eastern side, is where the least number of trees are today. That's pretty much open field right where you have your cursors showing there. Right, that's where the trees end, and there's like a buffer of field between the orchard and the LPC property next door.
So we'll really see those cars then, right?
Oh, yeah.
One day a week.
How far is it?
Well, not
well, no.
necessarily if they're out of school or anything else.
How far
Not as
are you
many.
from the Moose Hill parking lot?
From here to here,
Quite a ways.
And it's uphill too.
hundreds of feet.
It's a plus 40-foot rise from the lowlands of what we call the lowlands of the Moose Hill parking lot up to where the building site would be is plus almost 40 feet of rise. Yeah.
Take a bit of an effort to maybe walk. I don't see most people doing.
Having walked the property several times, I don't have a problem with it, but not everybody in the congregation is up to that.
You have anything else, Cynthia?
I guess I was just going to ask if some of the parking in the very front could be shifted over here on the side to sort of give more depth to that scenic byway. And I'm not suggesting that you want to keep more rows of trees, because understanding that as crop trees, it is a big undertaking. But at least there's some more green.
If you have a 400-seat congregation, tell me, do you need 200 parking spaces? I know what our ordinance says, but tell me if you do.
Are you asking me that question?
Yes.
I don't know if that I can answer that. That's one per 3 seats is what it is. So, I mean, that's a typical, I mean, it's, you know, you see some places that are 1 per 4 seats, so, you know, we're trying to meet the ordinance. What you have on there is the minimum number per the ordinance.
So the comment of shifting the parking lot to the west?
Just some of it.
Yeah, again, where you have your cursor there, in order to bring the parking up so that it wouldn't be a large number of stairs to get up to the building, if anything, we're talking about fill, bringing in fill to bring that parking lot up.
What happens when you put in the parking
It'll be
here,
a lower
though?
level. There'll be, the whole thing will be tiered, so the upper level will be a story above the middle level will be almost a story below the lower level. So where
No, I understand that.
where you
So-
have it right now would be future parking, but it'd be at a
Right.
lower level. Yeah. So
So you would still have to accommodate those people in the future? to
in the
get
future
into
would be,
here,
yeah, you'd basically be building, and then in the future you'd be bringing the parking back out towards the street. Is what. So
Well, no, that's not what I was, I'm looking at this area back here, which is
Yep.
the least visible and not that far away, not any further away from the building than these points in the front, so.
Right. I mean, it all comes down to the, I mean, the hope is that the building to the bottom up there where the clouded areas would be the big sanctuary in the future. So we'd like to have the parking as close to the sanctuary as possible and not 2 stories down out behind where they have to walk up 2 sets of stairs to get to. I mean, that's the reasoning there. And again, we're not trying to create a product now that they can actually, afford to build. So keeping the parking lot tight on 2 tiers rather than adding a 3rd one in right now, keeps their costs down right now. But we're working from, a master plan shrunk down to what makes sense, what can they afford to build, what can they conceivably build in this initial phase.
Laura?
Maybe you've already thought of this, but if you're going to eventually clear the land for the second future building area, the one in the middle, what sort of, would there be any possibility of putting parking there until you're ready to build the building and then building the other parking space? You're going to clear the land anyway at some point. I realize that you're putting in a parking space that you'd then have to remove is an expense, but then you could make your other one smaller, so you'd be saving on that end of it. And it would be right beside your building. It's a really important area, and I think you can hear us. We don't want to be difficult, and we know you're a church and you don't have a ton of money, but it's a really important area, and you talk about paving the whole thing, and everybody goes there for everything important in town. And I know that's not entirely your responsibility, but if there is a way to work it, we'd certainly like to help you find it.
Andre?
Just a quick question. Is any fill needed for the buildings that you proposed?
The building that we're building right now would be the one that would need some fill, yeah. I mean, the idea here is that, there's going to be, we're trying to limit the blasting that's going to be needed on the site, but at the same time, whatever blasting needs to happen, we want to happen now, because we don't want to be out there blasting for future buildings after the first building is up. So that's part of the whole kind of game plan here, is that the material that's needed for fill right now will be generated from the site right now. So there's an effort to balance the cuts and fills on the site. But that's the lowest building, so it would be the one that's the most subject to fill.
And the reason why I ask that question is it gets to Cynthia's issue with regard to maybe reducing the parking in the front and bringing it towards the back. You indicated earlier that you would need to have fill brought in order to achieve that. But if you're going to be bringing in fill for that building, could you expand that to reduce the pavement up front and provide that fill for the pavement towards the side of that building?
It would, it's tough for me to answer that right now, and we could take a look at that. I think that we've similarly been there. You need to extend the drive and the pavement off the side of that building. We have that building as far to the uphill side as we want, because we don't want to squeeze it too much further uphill, because then we lose the ability to expand the way they want to expand. And we do have a plan for a lower tier in that exact spot. So I guess that's if we were to look at the future plan or what we have in mind, it may become more obvious to you why we can't do that. We're just trading, we may be trading something now for later, but it wouldn't be more cost effective for them now to do it that way.
The other question I would have is how many parking lots are there in the historical site right next door?
Pretty small.
No, there's probably like 10, right? Maybe? And it's not paved, it's all,
Mud.
depending on the season. There's a possibility that you could use 10 of those and save some of yours.
Yeah, if you're suggesting us to consider a reduction in the number of parking spaces, that's something that we have not discussed. I guess we'd be willing to do that. I don't know if that's, I certainly want to propose something that.
We all have to talk about that.
Yeah. you know, the
I'm
last thing
just
we
trying to
want.
find, there's buildings right around there, and I appreciate the church next door is obviously gonna be used at the same time your church is, but the school probably is not, so I know, and I know what you're saying, that it's 100 feet or whatever, how far it is, and it's uphill, but you are trying to attract young people, aren't you, and let them walk, you can have 3 parking lots, old people here, young people there,
We want to keep the cars off of the road. That's what we want to do.
Thank you, Jeff.
Because they'll park on the road before they park down at the school.
Well, maybe not, you don't know, I mean, if you,
I would.
Yeah, that's what, that'll happen, they'll be parking on the road. I don't know if there's any way we can get along with less number of parking spaces.
Well, I would ask the church or churches similar, what their real needs are, and come back and make a proposal.
and then the other question too is, can you make a gravel as opposed to a impervious?
Yeah, they
Same
get,
way
Same
you
way
plow a
all-
gravel driveway. It's a little bigger.
No, because it becomes muddy, it
Yeah, I
becomes
mean, the gravel,
dusty,
I mean,
it's,
I don't want to, I mean, to me, a gravel parking lot is an impervious parking lot, so unless it was designed to not be, and in this case, we have ledge that's going to be 2 feet below the parking lot, so it's probably not advisable for it to be gravel. But
Yeah, I wouldn't advise it to be gravel either.
Well, if someone's going to church too and they're dressed nicely, I don't
Yeah.
know if that's appropriate either, but it's a good suggestion anyway.
Everybody who's wearing boots, that's where you park.
True.
So, can I ask a question? So, as we, and we will, of course, ponder the input we're getting tonight, and you want the parking lot further from the road, can you give us an idea how much further from the road you're thinking?
Behind the building.
Behind the building,
Or shieldable
Yeah.
a little bit. Like, it'd be
Yeah.
great if it could be shieldable. That's my opinion anyway. I don't want to speak for everybody.
Yeah. It's just, that's, when you look at that, all you see is parking lot, you don't see the building.
It's the defining feature in my
Say that
mind.
again?
I said, all you see is parking lot. You don't see anything else. When we first look at that, that's what you're looking at, a parking lot instead of the building. And if you look at all the other buildings around you, that's not what the impression you get. And I appreciate that you were saying you can't put only 5 spots or 10 spots in front of it, or turn around or anything else, because you don't have any other space, but if you can take some of them away, half of them away, I know that's a dream, and move them someplace else.
so our biggest difference is the location of the parking, and see what we can do to compromise there. I think from the number of parking spaces that are really needed, yeah. But I think at least half the board wants the parking behind the facility. Laura, Letha,
Something different.
Lynn,
yeah.
Mary,
So you're not looking at so much parking from the road.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
maybe ponder it, and you can always come back and talk to us again.
Right.
You were so patient. I really don't like telling you this. Only
I
you've
know.
been so patient. It's been a long
Waiting
night.
through
Thank you for
several
waiting.
hours.
Yes. All right, thank you
I
very
have
much.
some more items to cover. Can we- Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Have you gotten your impact fee bill yet?
Still has humor.
Motion to adjourn?
I have a motion to adjourn.